Okay, good morning, Chair and Commissioners. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you again. I'm Lane Long, City Manager of Marina. In my 6 years as Manager of Marina, our city has expended hundreds of thousands of dollars to ascertain the facts, science, and truth about the impacts of the CalAm desalination project on our groundwater, coastline, our citizens, and businesses. Marina has hired independent hydrogeologists, biologists, environmental consultants to examine the available data and facts. We did this to identify the harm and to provide the public and our decision makers with accurate analysis and supported findings. We thank the Commission and staff for the time spent in its own analysis and for verifying the project's risks with its own independent consultants. Your staff report provides a well-reasoned investigation of the facts and science in support of a recommendation to deny approval. Let me share some facts about our city that are not in your staff report. Marina is not a wealthy city, nor is it a city of the wealthy. With 22,000 residents, 22.8% of our children attend public schools are homeless. In Seaside, 57.2% are homeless. 11% of our school children are in foster care. 83% of our school children qualify for free and reduced lunch. Our city and business community provide hot breakfast every morning for 175 junior high and high school students before they go to school. Marina provides after-school programs and snacks for 700 children at our Teen and Community Center. These children, their parents, and our residents thank the Commission to your commitment to environmental justice. Equally commendable is the Commission's decision to provide a second venue for today's hearing within the impacted community. You have provided sectors of our population who have been disadvantaged, underserved, and too often marginalized an opportunity to participate and be heard. Your staff report clearly identifies the environmental injustices the project will have on our community, and the just decision is to deny. Marina is no different than Monterey, Carmel, and the other cities in its dependence upon the beaches to fill hotel rooms and restaurants with tourists and to provide a quality of life for its residents, which includes unfettered free enjoyment of towering sand dunes, rare coastal habitats, and gorgeous expanses of sea and sand. In summary, our coast and beaches are our economic engine and the source of our enjoyment. CalAm seeks to build an industrial project on 36 acres of our coast. Not one benefit of this project will come to Marina, but as your staff report points out, huge negative impacts will befall our city. While not a wealthy city, Marina is a leader in protecting the California coast and the Monterey Bay. Just 2 years ago, the City of Marina partnered with the Coastal Commission and the State Lands Commission to shut down the CEMEX sand mining plant. This historic settlement agreement will end and reverse the devastation of sand mining on our coastal environment. As a party to this agreement, this commission took great pride in restricting future use of this 400 acres to passive recreation, public access, public education, and restoration of native habitat. The CalAm project at the site defeats the very purpose of this agreement. Instead of access and enjoyment for our generations, the site will simply transform into a different type of industrial facility. One final point, Marina has just a couple places for access to our coastline. While the Fort Worth Dune State Park and Marina Dune State Beach provide stretches of beautiful coastline within Marina, neither beach is readily accessible by those with disabilities or limited mobility. When Marina designed a concept plan for another public access point at the CEMEX site, the flat topography from Highway 1 to the water's edge made the site uniquely suited to provide flat boardwalks and beach access for those dependent upon ADA accessibility accommodations. The CalAm slant wells impact this project. In closing, 100% of our drinking water comes from our clean and affordable groundwater aquifers that are threatened by this project. It is the wrong project, the wrong time. The Pure Water Monterey expansion project is feasible, does not have the negative impact to our groundwater coast, and can be online before any desalination project. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Dr. Michael Jocelyn, principal with WRA. The City of Marina engaged WRA to provide a technical peer review of the biological and mitigation aspects of the proposed project. Our detailed reports were provided to the Commission, and I will summarize briefly. All parties agree that the project is located in an ESHA. The Flandern dune habitat is rare in California, and the Department of Fish and Game considers it to be threatened. It supports over 30 sensitive species, including 7 plants and 4 animals that are listed as threatened or endangered. Some of these species live nowhere else in the world and are uniquely tied to one another. CalAm's project would have direct and long-lasting impacts to the coastal dune ESHA. These impacts are prohibited under the Coastal Act, with the exception of Section 30260, which contains 3 tests. The third test requires that environmental effects are mitigated to the maximum extent feasible. The applicant did not prepare any mitigation plan that demonstrates that it is located sufficient property that can be restored, protected, and managed over the long term to assure adequate replacement of the ESHA. Instead, a vague mitigation strategy was proposed that is reliant on others to undertake, does not guarantee habitat replacement, and is not specific to acreage. The project would impact 21 acres of ESHA in the city of Marina. Your staff found that over 35 acres will be affected by both permits. Our review, using the Commission's definition of permanent impacts as those lasting more than 1 year, found that over 50 acres should be restored. It is not impossible to locate or undertake a large-scale restoration project. For example, the Marina Dunes Preserve restoration is 62 acres. However, CalAm has not provided any detail to demonstrate its commitment to undertake mitigation at a level normally required by the Commission. The need for these plans is not to delay a finding. As your staff found, without details on the mitigation, there's no basis to find whether it meets the Section 30260 standard. The applicant has had sufficient time to propose suitable locations, but it has not. Instead, it improperly hopes to leave such a critical determination for after permit approval. WRA's review of other Commission findings show that detailed restoration plans are part of the application, allowing the Commission to consider the adequacy of the proposal. Permits are then conditioned on the preparation of final plans based on comments received from commissioners, the public, and staff. WRA advised the city in its review that the mitigation strategy does not meet either the city's LCP requirement of fully mitigated nor the Coastal Act Section 30260 requirement of the maximum extent feasible.
Good morning. My name is Skip Spalding. I am an attorney representing the City of Marina. At the outset, the city fully supports the staff's recommendation to deny these coastal development permits. Not surprisingly, the City Planning Commission denied the appeal permit for exactly the same reasons. The staff report properly finds that the project is fatally inconsistent with a whole host of city, LCP, and Coastal Act requirements. Mayor Long just explained how the project fails to meet public access, coastal hazard, and groundwater depletion policies. It would also cause unacceptable and disproportionate environmental justice impacts to Marina and to protected ratepayer communities like the city of Seaside. As Dr. Jocelyn just testified, the project is completely incompatible with the Coastal Act ESHA policies. In fact, the project cannot be built in ESHA because the project is not resource dependent within the meaning of the Coastal Act. This is not a discretionary decision. Rather, under the Act and under the city's LCP, it is required that the project not be cited in ESHA because of this resource dependency. Given this reality, the only potential approval path for the project would be to get an override under Coastal Act Section 30260. However, as the staff report finds, the project fails to meet any of the 3 Coastal Act override tests. and let's talk about each of them quickly. It fails the first override test that there be no feasible or less environmentally damaging alternative available. To the contrary, as we have heard today already, the Pure Water Monterey expansion project is feasible, sustainable, and much less environmentally impactful than the project itself. In fact, the PWM expansion is a perfect alternative solution. Its advantages compared to the CalAm project are it would be located outside the coastal zone, it would not impact ESHA, it would produce water at 1/3 of the cost, 2,000 acre feet versus 6,000 acre feet per year, per acre foot, obviously. It would have only minor environmental impacts, as the supplemental EIR released for that project last week confirms. It is properly sized to meet actual demand. It is not a bloated project based on outdated demand numbers that were generated 10 to 12 years ago. The PWM expansion has widespread community support. It is not expected to be a litigation target, and it can be completed by about December 2021, which is at least 2-3 years before the CalAm project could be completed. The project also fails the second override test, which is whether denial of the permits would adversely affect the public welfare. In fact, to the contrary, denial of the permits would promote the public welfare. It is pretty difficult to envision a project that is more impactful in a highly adverse way to a full range of coastal resources and cause a greater conflict with coastal act policies. Given the project's wide-ranging impacts on ESHA, public access, groundwater, and protected communities of concern, we agree with your staff that a fair balancing of these factors justifies denying the project as not violating the second override test. All right, the third override test is the mitigation test, and that is whether the project's environmental effects are, quote, mitigated to the maximum extent feasible. As Dr. Jocelyn has already explained, CalAm refused to provide the city when this project was before it, or now the commission with a full mitigation plan. CalAm now proposes to preserve only a few, 2.2 acres of the 35 acres that it will damage with the project, thereby causing a huge net loss of ESHA as a result of its construction and operation. Quite surprisingly, CalAm has no plan whatsoever to address the coastal hazard impacts that were addressed in the staff report. These are caused by sea level rise and by dune recession. This is pretty astonishing given the staff report finding that, quote, active burial of the wellheads by dune sand could start by 2040, only 20 years from now, and perhaps 15 years after the project begins. And for a 60-year project, that's completely unsustainable. In short, the project fails to meet any of these override tests. Finally, I want to briefly address a newly raised override issue. CalAm is not a water supplier caught between conflicting regulatory directives by the PUC on the one hand and by this commission on the other. It would be a complete fiction to take that position which CalAm has been taking. In fact, the PUC specifically directed CalAm to provide the coastal agencies with a full mitigation plan during permitting. The PUC made no findings on public welfare or maximum mitigation. and the PUC alternatives analysis was different, narrower, and different. So this commission has independent authority, and the findings of its staff are completely within the commission's jurisdiction and statutory authority.
Thank you. That's the end of the 15 minutes, so we're going to move on to the next group, which is the Marina Coast Water District. And amongst your speakers, you will have a full allotment of 15 minutes, so just divide it out, please, amongst all of you.
Thank you, Chair Boschko, Commissioners. My name is Keith Vandermotten. I am the General Manager for the Marina Coast Water District. Marina Coast Water District became an exclusive groundwater sustainability within the Salinas Valley Groundwater Basin in 2016. When we started out with our sustainability planning, we discovered there was very little groundwater data in the area where the CalAm Desal project is proposed to be located. That project is projected to pump over 17,000 acre-feet a year of groundwater. It was clear to us as a groundwater sustainability agency that we needed more comprehensive data on the complex underlying aquifer systems to truly understand the impacts of groundwater pumping of this magnitude at that location. So in May 2017, we partnered with Stanford University to perform an airborne electromagnetic survey, or AEM, in the vicinity of the project. We flew 400 linear miles and took essentially an MRI of the basin 900 feet deep. The results of that AEM demonstrated that the Desal project would extract significant sources of drinking water, disrupting the delicate balance of the aquifer systems, resulting in increased seawater intrusion. The resulting loss of groundwater supplies to MCWD's customers would cause tremendous increases in the cost to replace that supply. The AEM also confirmed that CalAm would need to obtain an appropriate groundwater right for the sources of drinking water extracted by the Desal plant. CalAm currently has no rights to extract groundwater from the Desal plant. And the CPUC expressly and correctly stated that it had no jurisdiction to determine water rights. Since the slant wells would pump from a critically overdrafted basin with no surplus water, there is no possibility of CalAm obtaining the necessary groundwater rights. In addition to the fatal flaw regarding groundwater rights, CalAm does not have access to an MCWD-owned pipeline that it had assumed it could use, a pipeline that is necessary for CalAm to deliver desal water to its customers. CalAm assumed it would be able to use the pipeline for desal water under an existing agreement. However, that existing agreement clearly says that CalAm may only use the pipeline for aquifer storage and recovery, or ASR water, from the Carmel River for injection into the Seaside Basin and later recovery for use on the peninsula. Use of the pipeline for desal would actually create significant issues with the ASR project, as ASR water flows south to north, and desal water would flow north to south in the same pipeline. This situation would prevent ASR water from being injected in the winter and available for later use. MCWD also performed an analysis of available capacity in the pipeline beyond the ASR and MCWD's customers. We determined there is not sufficient available capacity in the pipeline for the desal project. To eliminate this issue, CalAm needs to construct its own separate pipeline. This would entail having to design and obtain environmental approvals for a new pipeline that was not considered in the current desal EIR documentation that was approved by the CPUC. With no legal rights to water the groundwater basin or the necessary pipelines, the desal project is currently infeasible. And certainly these flaws cannot be fixed in time to meet the CEO deadlines. In contrast, there is an alternative, the Pure Water Monterey expansion project that can meet the CEO deadlines, does not threaten groundwater supplies, and is moving ahead on its design and environmental work for all the facilities it needs to supply the remaining water for the CalAm service area for today and the foreseeable future. Additionally, the source water for the Pure Water Monterey expansion is predominantly wastewater from indoor water use. It is drought tolerant and stable, whereas the desal plant and its related impacts from pumping groundwater from the basin is connected to the basin, and like all the pumpers in the basin, is susceptible to drought limitations and Sustainable Groundwater Management Act restrictions. Last October, the Monterey Water Board passed a resolution describing Pure Water Monterey expansion as a backup to the desal, and quote, to have a ready-to-go alternative plan in place in the event that the CalAm desalination project is delayed beyond the cease and desist order. Considering that the desal plant is an infeasible project and no clear path to meeting the CDO, it is good that the Monterey One Water and the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District had the foresight to provide us with this needed alternative to meet the CDO.
Nelson.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Yeah, can you please load the presentation? Thank you. It's under Nelson.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Vera Nelson. I work for EPI Environment and Water, and represent Marina Coast Water, Marina Coast Water District. The purpose of my presentation is to talk about the potential groundwater impacts of the Monterey Water Supply Project. The project, as Keith indicated, is located within the 180 400-foot aquifer subbasin, which is a DWR critically overdrafted subbasin. The project will extract over 17,000 acre-feet per year of water. That water will be made up of both seawater and groundwater from this basin. The slant wells extract water and from both the 180-foot aquifer and the dune sand aquifer. The dune sand aquifer is the upmost aquifer where rainwater infiltrates, and therefore there's a lot of fresh water that exists in this aquifer. The project EIR assumed that there was no such fresh water because it really only looked at the groundwater characteristics of the deeper aquifers. The new data that's been collected supports the analyses that were done in the past that show there's actually significant groundwater, fresh groundwater within the dune sand aquifer and the upper 180-foot aquifer. The areas that are identified in blue indicate the dark areas are the areas that were identified by the NEM study that Keith mentioned, and then there's been additional monitoring of the dune sand aquifer and the upper 180-foot aquifer within Fort Ward. Those areas are all blue. That's all fresh water sitting there. Underneath it, yes, there's seawater intruded, aquifers. But these aquifers actually have a lot of fresh water. And this is the fresh water that we're so concerned the project will tap. Weiss Consultants, Weiss Associates did an independent analysis on behalf of the Coastal Commission reviewing this new information. They concluded that additional data and modeling are needed to assess the potential impacts of the project. EPI strongly concurs with this conclusion. They really looked at the impact of the new data and how, if in fact the changes in the gradients that have been recently observed would change the analyses. Basic hydrogeology says that if there are inward gradients, basically flow from the ocean towards the land, that the slant wells would take less fresh water. This new data shows that in fact groundwater in the dune sand aquifer is flowing towards the ocean. And this is representative of more normal hydrologic conditions, not those assessed at the EIR, which was basically the end of a major drought. This new data was presented in the information submitted and basically shows that in the 3 wells, basically 4 wells that were installed by CalAm, that in 2018 we show seaward gradients, not landward gradients. In the report that was produced by Weiss Associates, he even points out that there's only this 2 to 3 week period between when the water was actually flowing inland at 2 wells, 4 and 7, whereas basically over the last 4 years it's been flowing towards the ocean. And as a result, he concludes that the analysis that was in the report is flawed and that additional analysis is needed because it didn't consider the fact that there's actually seaward gradients within the dune sand aquifer. The other conclusion is that if in fact the new data which supports this analysis is correct, that as much as 7 square miles of the dune sand aquifer could be affected by the slant wells. and he estimates that as much as 15% of the water that is extracted by the slant wells could be fresh water. He doesn't even take into account the fact that there's 50,000 acre-feet of groundwater sitting within the 7 square mile radius, which could also be affected. The impact of taking this fresh water from the dune sand aquifer not only affects this aquifer, but potentially underlying aquifers, because the water basically makes a U-turn and enters the basin and supplies the rest of the basin. So in conclusion, we concur with Weiss in that additional data, not just modeling, but additional data need to be collected in the vicinity of the wells that CalAm has put in, and that needs to be incorporated in the overall understanding and modeling of the groundwater impacts. In addition, the AEM data needs to be fully considered, as well as the new data from Port Oregon. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you finished?
Yes.
Good morning, Chair Bosco and Commissioners. I'm Dr. Ted Moore, President of the Board of Directors of Marina Coast Water District. I've been on the Marina Coast Board for 23 years. I've served on the Monterey Water Board for 6 years as Marina Coast representative. I was involved when Marina Coast built the first publicly owned, Coastal Commission approved desalination project on the central coast of California, and when we built our first recycled water tank. And obviously I'm involved with the Pure Water Monterey and its proposed expansion. The Coastal Commission staff is the first state-level agency to see through CalAm's smoke and mirrors. Tom Luster and your staff got it right. The CalAm project will not and cannot comply with the Coastal Act. The 4 major components of Pure Water Monterey have been built by Monterey One Water and Marina Coast. Next Monday, it will be producing advanced treated recycled water for the first time. There is space in the main treatment building and on site for the expansion of Pure Water Monterey. And unlike CalAm's proposed project, Pure Water Monterey involves no failed coastal slant well, no hydrogeologists with financial conflicts of interest on their project, no lack of water rights, and no unending litigation. So why must you distrust CalAm? This is a private company that bought the 2 dams on the Carmel River in 1966 and has proceeded to allow them to silt up to the point that one has had to be removed and 60% of the original storage capacity is now gone. They performed so badly during the droughts in the 1970s that the state of California had to create a local government agency, the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District, to intervene and try to prod CalAm into action. CalAm's 1995 new dam proposal failed. In 1995, the State Water Resources Control Board had to tell them to stop taking 10,000 acre-feet from the river because they were killing it. Their 2004 Del Monte Beach desal project failed. In 2012, they caused the failure of the second desal project by unilaterally withdrawing from the CPUC-approved regional desalination project. What's the real reason? In order to gain $35 million of profit they would get from taking over the project in its entirety, which is the project before you today. CalAm had to be dragged kicking and screaming into the Pure Water Monterey project, presumably because it was built by 3 public agencies, and no big profit for CalAm. They will oppose Pure Water Monterey expansion for the same profit motive. What you will hear from CalAm over the next few months will be hair-splitting excuses and finger-pointing, trying to explain away these failures and their greed. They will claim the sky will fall if you deny their appeal. And they've already started their information campaign against Pure Water Monterey expansion. There have been folks who have suggested to CalAm that as an alternative to this, and this was early on, you consider building your desal project in your own service area. Not interested. There have been folks who suggested expanding the existing Sand City desal plant in their own service area. Not interested. There have been folks who suggested if you really want to help Castroville, and I have some sympathy for Castroville, go build your desal plant and put your extraction wells east of Castroville. Not interested. So please, deny CalAm's appeal, uphold Marina's local coastal program, and put CalAm's environmentally unjust and non-compliant project in the trash bin where it belongs. Thank you very much.
Quiet, please. Yes, use your hand. No clapping. Thank you. Go right ahead.
Good morning, Chair, Commissioners. My name is Howard Wilkins. I'm with Remy Newsman, and I'm Environmental Law Counsel for Marina Coast Water District. I submitted a letter yesterday that hopefully was delivered to all your inboxes, and I'm not going to have time to repeat a lot of things in there. But as you've heard from our general manager and our hydrologist, there are a number of fatal flaws with this project. And one thing that wasn't mentioned in my letter that just came up this morning is you heard CalAm's counsel say that the liner for the outfall that they need for this project is not something that's part of their application, not something that they're asking you to consider at this time. As you know, a project needs to be considered in its whole. And so the idea of piecemealing that out separately is something that is not permitted under CEQA or the Coastal Act. Therefore, this is another fatal flaw, and CalAm will need to submit that application. You need to do CEQA review before you can even consider this. The last 2 points I would like to make is in terms of alternatives, you heard Director Moore talk about a number of alternatives. If there is any gap, and we certainly believe that the Water Management District's numbers are accurate and conservative, there are a number of alternatives. You don't need this large-scale desal plant to meet any gap that might exist. With that, we want to thank staff, and we concur with staff's conclusions recommending a denial. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. My name is Maureen McCarty, District Director for Assembly Member Mark Stone. The Assembly Member couldn't be here today, so he asked me to make a statement on his behalf. Dear Chair Boschko and Commissioners, thank you for allowing me to address the Commission regarding the appeal before you. My concerns over CalAm's Monterey Peninsula Water Supply Project were previously expressed in a letter dated October 29th. Since this letter was entered as public correspondence, I won't restate each point of concern. Instead, I will take this opportunity to urge the Commission to support the recommendation of Coastal Commission staff to deny both the appealed and consolidated coastal development permits sought by CalAm for its project. I wholeheartedly agree with staff findings that this project is profoundly inconsistent with both the City of Marina's Local Coastal Program and the Coastal Act, and that an override of Coastal Act Section 30233 does not apply here since a feasible alternative currently exists. The potential risks that CalAm project poses to environmentally sensitive habitat areas, the freshwater aquifer, and to the underserved communities who rely on the aquifer are far too great. As chair of the Assembly Select Committee on Coastal Protection, I presided over a hearing several years ago in which we looked at the potential for a water loading order as a means to guide decisions with respect to sequencing projects based on a logical order of least to most impacts on the environment and ratepayers. In such an order, desalination projects should be considered last because of their cost and impacts. While a water loading order is not currently the policy of California, it would be an appropriate frame of reference for your commission as you consider projects and potential alternatives. A feasible, far less environmentally damaging alternative is readily available, the Pure Water Monterey expansion. This project can provide a substantial amount of water to the Monterey Peninsula, obviating the need for the proposed CalAm project. This alternative is consistent with California's Sustainable Groundwater Management Act and other state policies that prioritize the reclamation and reuse of water. Indeed, because of less expensive and environmentally superior alternatives such as this, the local ratepayers do not need to bear the significantly increased rate burden of the proposed CalAm project. It is incumbent upon the Commission, as guardians of California's fragile coastal resources, to deny the Monterey Peninsula Water Supply Project due to its inconsistency with the LCP's habitat protection and hazards policies, its inconsistency with the Coastal Act, and its failure to meet the override requirements outlined in the Coastal Act. Thank you for your consideration and for your service to the state. Sincerely, Mark Stone, Assembly Member, 29th District.
Thank you. Bruce Delgado, Mayor of the City of Marina.
Good morning, Commissioners, and thank you for having us here today, and thanks to everyone who's been here to speak their minds, and to everyone back home in the Marina City Council chambers. 28 elected officials, including 3 mayors representing the majority of the Monterey Peninsula, have sent letters to you opposing the CalAm project. They represent 90,000 people on the peninsula. The city of Sand City, that has 300 people, and the city of Carmel and PG that combined have 40,000 people, have not sent letters opposing CalAm. What I'm pointing out to you that the two county supervisors who represent the Monterey Peninsula in late July both proposed the permit to begin construction on CalAm's project until you have your decision known to us. And those two district supervisors shared many of the same concerns that your staff report covers. Mark Stone, our assembly person you've just heard from, represents us well and also opposes this project. The economics comparison provided in your staff report on page 81 demonstrate the comparative numbers: $1.2 billion to build Desal, $200 million to build the Pure Water Monterey expansion. Operating it, your staff report on the same page clarifies that it's $6,000 per acre foot for the Desal versus $2,000 per acre foot for the Pure Water Monterey expansion. On page 73 of your staff report, CalAm rates are listed in 2015 as $716,000 a year for the average customer, growing to $1,200 by 2017 and expected to double due to CalAm rates increases to $2,400 per year by 2023. We the people don't want our water rates to double, and it is not necessary. No queremos pagar doble para nuestra agua. On page 74 of your staff report, it is stated that the CalAm project has the potential to force low-income people, such as in Seaside, to leave this area. We the people don't want unnecessarily to raise the water cost to force low-income residents in Seaside or anywhere else to leave this area. No queremos las personas que no ganan mucho dinero muevan de nuestra área porque no pueden pagar por agua. I want commissioners to know earlier this week the report that CalAm spent $5.2 million to stop has concluded it is feasible to buy out CalAm. Now, the groundswell of public and elected support will grow even faster in opposition to this Desal project. The main theme of your 91-page staff report is that all harm from this project is unnecessary due to the recycled water alternative. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Marianne Turbone. I'm the mayor of Sand City and a member of both the Monterey Peninsula Water Authority Board and vice chair of the Monterey One Water Board. And I'm here representing my city. I was also the alternate city rep on the Water Management District Board. I have been directly involved in all the deliberations about our water supply. I am convinced that we need a diverse water supply project that is drought-proof and provides a reliable supply even in the event of any interruptions or failures in the recycling portion of the supply. A diverse supply of desalination, groundwater replenishment, aquifer storage, recovery, and of course, Sand City's Desal. Your staff recommendation to deny the slant well permit would be just too risky and would leave us with nearly 60% of our water supply dependent on source water from other areas in which there is no guarantee and are subject to severe limitation during periods of drought, which we are sure to have. And we have, in good faith and at your Commission's request, developed and successfully tested slant wells as an environmentally superior way to supply water for our desal plant. Our success could be a model for other state and coastal areas. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. I think it's good morning. My name is Jason Campbell, a City Council member, and I appreciate the time to speak with you right now. A clear majority of our council did sign a letter by elected officials saying essentially no to the desal plant. And so I feel comfortable representing my council as well as my constituents. I support all the sound reasoning we've heard so far for the denial of the appeal, and I'm sure there will be a lot more. I also sit on the Monterey 1 Water Board, and there was a mention of a resolution that was passed, and I just want to point out, if you take a look at that resolution and count the votes, you see it was very close. It was nearly failed, and the members who voted against that resolution represented, as it turns out, the majority of the people who are mostly impacted by the proposed desal plant. They're going to pay back costs, and as well as Marina suffer the risk to their water supply. Seaside is unique in a lot of ways. It's the second largest city in the county. It is the largest city on the peninsula, but unfortunately it has the lowest median income on the peninsula. We also, it's interesting, we have 3 water suppliers. We have CalAm as the elephant or the bear, and then we have Seaside Muni and Marina Coast Water District, who you've heard from tonight. We depend on Marina Coast Water District to supply water to our residents and for future development in Fort Ord, which is our going to be a source of a lot of our economic development, which we desperately need. So we're put in this awkward position where we're being told our residents need to pay for a very high, very expensive water plant, which will actually threaten one of our other suppliers. It is, I think, incredibly unjust situation for me and my constituents to be put in. I also heard something a little earlier which took me by surprise from CalAm that said their plant is not going to cause seawater intrusion nor freshwater, draw more freshwater in. At a 6 million gallon per day plant, sucking over 7 million gallons a day out of the aquifer, would you really expect a static situation? That it defies common sense. So anyway, please deny the appeal, and we do not want CalAm's wells under our neighbors' feet and taking our water. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Wendy Rudasky. My family has lived on the Monterey Peninsula for 4 generations. My husband and I made our home in Marina nearly 20 years ago, where I now serve on the Monterey Peninsula Unified School District Board of Education. I am here to speak in support of the staff recommendation to deny the CalAm desal project. On the Monterey Peninsula, there are tremendous disparities in the wealth of our residents. Marina is a working class community. 1 in 10 of our district students is homeless. Nearly 70% of our district students are socioeconomically disadvantaged, qualifying for free reduced price lunch. Seniors, including my own mother, are on limited fixed incomes. The cost of the CalAm desal project stands to create great hardship for our most vulnerable residents. I am here today because we have an alternative water supply project that is publicly owned, will cost our water users a fraction of the amount, and does not destroy 7 acres of environmentally sensitive dunes habitat, and importantly does not threaten the water supply for the city of Marina. There is strong agreement that additional water is needed to meet the needs on the Monterey Peninsula. There is also unprecedented support for pure water Monterey, and it is an alternative that must be considered in your decision today. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Dr. Lisa Berkeley with the City of Marina. I serve on the City Council there. So I spent a lot of time thinking about what I wanted to ask you, what I wanted to convey to you. What could get your attention, what could inspire you, and what could make you think to the future and think bigger picture when it comes to desalination. I wondered about your seats on the Commission. Did you accept the appointment as a Coastal Commissioner for reasons similar to why I ran for office? I ran because I care deeply about helping people have a good quality of life, one in which they're able to earn a living, have a safe place to live, have access to clean air and water, and to have parks and beaches to rest on and play in. Like you, I do my best to understand motivations and discern fear from hope, fact from fiction. In 2017, I learned about Stanford University's studies which show that CalAm's Desal project may deplete or contaminate Marina's sole source of drinking water. This study serves as greater impetus to protect our city's water. Every year, for the past few years, we have spent close to 7% of our city's annual $22 million budget in this fight. Unfortunately, it has been at the expense of some of the bare necessities required for a city to run well, things such as proper road or sidewalks maintenance and repair. This economic challenge and our city not wanting to fall further into disrepair resulted in a citizens' ballot measure which raised our sales tax to 9.25% in order to generate further revenue. Unfortunately, however, this increase created further financial stress on our already disadvantaged community. Yet another hardship and injustice placed upon Marina as a result of CalAm's proposed desal plant. At times, the process of protecting our community and water has been disheartening. That is, until the issuance of the Coastal Commission staff report recommending denial of CalAm's project. Your staff had the wisdom to look from all perspectives in order to develop a comprehensive understanding of this project, the impacts it will have, and other realistic replacement options. They have done sound research and should be commended. It is my hope that you will mirror their wisdom and ultimately deny this project. In closing, I will remind you of the words of William Faulkner. I paraphrase. Never be afraid to raise your voice for honesty and truth and compassion against injustice and lying and greed. If people all over the world would do this, it would change the earth. And for that reason, I ask you to think about the future generations, to think about the future of our oceans, and I thank you for your work.
Good afternoon. Director Alvin Edwards, Monterey Peninsula Water Management District, Division 1, Seaside. I heartily support the staff report and recommend to deny the coastal development permit for CalAm water desal. This project will hurt the city of Seaside with environmental and economic injustice, with parts of the city in Marina Coastal Water District and parts of the city in CalAm Water District. The proposed desal, like I said, will inject seawater intrusion in the Marina side of Seaside. Overdraft Salinas Valley Basin, threaten the municipal water system of Seaside and Marina Coast. CalAm Seaside residents will bear a much higher cost of water. We cannot afford to have our water rates double. This project is not in our community's best interest at a cost of $1.2 billion over 30 years. And $123 million over 30 years to the shareholders of CalAm. I support the Pure Water Monterey expansion. It will help the city of Seaside all around, 360 degrees. It is environmentally superior to desal. It is less expensive than desal. And parts of the project is already built. We just have to add on to that project. CalAm desal is in trouble. Your staff did an outstanding job with the staff report. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Mr. Riley next.
Well, I'm George Riley. I'm a member, elected member to the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District Board of Directors. I want to take you up 15,000 feet for a moment. The PUC mission is very clear. It's to protect the investor-owned utility for future earnings. If you read their mission statement, you can't help but get that simple version of what their mission is. My question is, how many bites of the apple does PUC get? They had 6 years to develop their project. A lot of the defense of the desal project is based on CalAm's own material that has been submitted and in testimony, but also other testimony too. But it's the PUC that had 6 years to do this. Now there was a court case to try to have the PUC reconsider a number of their weaknesses, and they successfully objected to that court case and didn't do that. So they were asked previously, a year or so ago, to relook at some of their data. They didn't do that. Now they're coming back into the picture after the fact
and after your report. And they didn't enter this process until after your report. And I'm sure they're here because of CalAm's lobbying. But the point is that their mission is to protect the public, the investor-owned utility. Your mission is to protect the coast. They're diametrically different missions. But CalAm has now decided to enter a continuance claim in place of CalAm, so CalAm can save its continuance claim for later, another intervention by PUC. I'm saying, the way the humorous side of TV is, stay in your lane. I'm saying make it very clear when you go forward. I support the staff report, by the way. As you go forward, remember CalAm's the PUC commission is clearly in one direction only. Yours is a different direction. Please follow your mission.
Connor Everett for the Environmental Justice Coalition for Water. It's been an interesting, long couple of days. I appreciate Commission's vote yesterday on desalination. I think the staff, as has been said before, really got this right. I always wondered when I started working on this issue almost 30 years ago, why the Coastal Commission would be looking at water policy and why water agencies would be looking at marine impacts. But in the end, and in this instance especially, I think you understand that we need to set some kind of priorities, or what Senator Mark Stone said, a loading order, as the PUC does have on energy, it doesn't on water. We have to have a sense of priorities, a sense of the impacts, and make those decisions. Otherwise, we end up with the water that is the most expensive, the most energy intensive, and the least needed. So the human right to water, the state of California, a bill we worked on for many years, talks about safe, affordable, and accessible water. That's still an issue for over 1 million people in the state. We're working with people with shallow wells in the Monterey Bay area, inland. Those wells are either polluted or often going dry. Desal does not solve those problems. The issue of cost, and if you can look to other places, the only other place that's done a large-scale desal plant in this state, in Carlsbad, and you look at the annual reports to the San Diego County Water Authority, you see why my friend is running in an inland area in Santee for the water board, because their water rates are fixed and high and $100 to $200 a month when people can't afford it. That's a very real reality in terms of the impact. Any impact of small amount of water is going to hit many communities. And UCLA Luskin Center recently put out a human right to water study on the desal proposal in Orange County, but it applies here as well. So drinking water quality, wells, and then we're talking about groundwater. I'm glad to see everybody so interested in slant wells all of a sudden. But I have to say, having been the head of a groundwater agency that actually had farmers put meters on their wells in Ojai, that it is more of an art than a science. If you think of groundwater as an inverted pyramid, as you get down to the lowest point, it goes down quite quickly. We have to take a precautionary principle. We're not resolving it by creating more demand. Recycled water is an alternative. It's been used as an alternative in Orange County and many other places, West Basin as well. It is the first alternative, and if we're going to make choices, it is a well-designed, well-applicated, perfect solution. Thank you very much.
My name is Kathy Biala, and I am from Citizens for Just Water. We have a 5-minute video that was made by all volunteers. Madam Chair, before I begin, may I ask for a show of hands of those opposing the CalAm Desal project? May I see your hand? Thank you. May I have the video, please?
Citizens for Just Water would like you to be aware of a classic case of environmental injustice that is unfolding right here in Marina and the Old communities. Our story of environmental injustice begins with knowing who Marina and our communities are. We are a small city of about 22,000 located just north of the wealthy tourist area of the Monterey Peninsula. We are one of the few remaining undeveloped coastal cities where disadvantaged people live and easily walk to pristine beaches. Here are some key demographics from the July 1st, 2018 U.S. Census population estimates. Marina has 35.8% white alone, meaning 64% are non-whites. Marina has 14.4% persons in poverty. Marina has a per capita income in the past 12 months of $27,211. Marina and the Ord communities have shouldered an unfair burden of regional projects. Marina has been tasked with one of the highest mandatory requirements in the region to build affordable housing units. The regional landfill, as well as the regional sewage plant, create impacts to air quality for Marina residents. With the CalAm project, we are expected to shoulder even more of the region's burdens and suffer all the environmental risks and harms. Marina will not receive one drop of water from this project. In fact, it is all for a neighboring jurisdiction's sole benefit. Marina and the Ord communities are currently served by the small, effective, publicly elected Marina Coast Water District. For decades, MCWD has been delivering clean water at one of the lowest rates in the region. By contrast, the peninsula receives water from its purveyor, CalAm, a private for-profit corporation that levies the highest rates of water in the country. After overdrafting the Seaside Basin and overpumping the Carmel River, CalAm is in search for a new water source for the peninsula. CalAm is attempting to reach beyond their own jurisdiction into Marina Coast Water District service area without invitation. CalAm is stating that their project will pump ocean water, but in fact, they will pump brackish and fresh groundwater from aquifers beneath the land, not beneath the ocean. Our basin, the Salinas Valley Groundwater Basin, has been listed by the State Water Board as one of California's 21 critically overdrafted basins. Extraction of groundwater will occur from nearly the entire length of each slant wall pipe, causing more seawater intrusion and further contamination of our basin, our sole source of potable water. CalAm's justification of this illegal water grab is that they can obtain future appropriated groundwater rights. However, in this very assertion, they are admitting that groundwater rights are relevant and they currently have zero water rights. Our breathtaking beaches are home to the threatened species, the western snowy plover, and many other shorebirds. Our love for the western snowy plover is reflected in our downtown banners, Grover the Plover, mascot for Citizens for Sustainable Marina, and ads for new homes in Marina. The western snowy plover was adopted by the city as our official shorebird. The CalAm project will adversely impact more than 30 acres of sensitive habitats. In 2017, the Coastal Commission, State Lands Commission, and the City of Marina passed a historic CEMEX settlement agreement. This agreement ended the last active sand mining on any U.S. shores. When the CEMEX plant finally closes, the land will be restored to its natural habitat, bought by public agencies and dedicated to conservation and low-impact recreation in perpetuity. What is currently private land now will be publicly accessible in the future. However, this is the exact same site of the proposed CalAm desalination slant wells. The project would bring several large cement pads, pumping infrastructure, fencing, roads, as well as the pipes necessary to service this project, right on a pristine and rare dunes. The City of Marina has had to expend $1 million of our public funds to defend our water this past year, with $1 million more before this battle is over. Our roads need major repairs. We desperately need a new fire truck, more police hires, and a senior center. Our civic hall and city offices are in 43-year-old portals. Historically, most disadvantaged communities cannot successfully rally against the operational sophistication of major corporations, nor do they have the funding to support multiple legal challenges and expensive public relations campaigns. This is the heart of environmental injustice. And what is most troubling is that there is a feasible recycled water project, the Pure Water Monterey Expansion Project. It satisfies the peninsula's water needs for decades to come and avoid all the devastation to Marina and the Ord communities. The Coastal Commission's new environmental justice policy gives hope that our voices can be heard. Please give weight and meaning to environmental justice per your new policy.
Thank you very much. Thank you. If you could skip this.
Good morning, my name is Tyler Jones. I'm here on behalf of California Unions for Responsible Energy, or CURE. CURE includes local Monterey County residents, workers, and labor organizations who are committed to sustainable community growth that addresses and minimizes environmental and public health impacts. It also includes thousands of members across the state. On behalf of CURA, we participated in the PUC process, commented on the DEIR, FEIR, and the CDP, the staff report for the coastal development permit for this project, which we have. There are numerous reasons why the Commission is required to deny the CDP. The project has many unmitigated impacts that were not addressed through the CEQA process or mitigated towards CEQA standards, which are different than the more stringent standards of the Coastal Act. We commented that while the ocean plan identifies that subsurface ocean intakes are the most environmentally friendly way to take in water for these projects, it does not mean they are free of environmental impacts. Vertical infiltration will cause accumulation of biomatter, which in other situations has caused increases in methane or deprivation of dissolved oxygen in the area around biomatter accumulation. The project will convert an area slated to restore to unique Flandrian dune habitat without a complete, fully publicly vetted mitigation plan to ensure that restoration after construction slant walls will occur properly. The project will emit air quality impacts that were found to be significant and unavoidable. Most of these will occur during construction for the slant walls in Marina. Greenhouse gas emissions from the project were proposed to be mitigated by procuring, not providing, renewable resources. These resources were not identified, and there's no guarantee that this will actually reduce greenhouse gas emissions. This project may just purchase power from projects that would already exist and would have supplied that renewable power anyways. New information shows that this project will withdraw more fresh groundwater than previously thought. If this project is approved and groundwater rights are challenged, this could set up a lengthy groundwater adjudication for a basin. What that means is that instead of having a SGMA process through a public agency with a statutory mandate to consider disadvantaged communities, groundwater management can be handled by the courts who have standing requirements, and it's costlier for the public to participate. The new data also contradicts the assumptions relied on in the EIR. New guidance from the Commission regarding sea level rise shows the sand dunes will migrate onto the area over time. This will increase the need for further maintenance to remove sand and will also limit public access. These issues were not evaluated in the EIR. The cost of water for this project will be astronomical, hitting low-income ratepayers the hardest, making living in the area and visiting the area more costly for everyone. So the project is inconsistent with the Coastal Act. The staff report correctly points out the numerous ways in which approval of the CDP would violate the Coastal Act. The staff report also correctly notes that the overriding policies within the Coastal Act are not allowed because there are feasible project alternatives. The Commission should not rely on outdated, oversized water demand assumptions to determine that the project is necessary. The Commission should instead consider the alternatives that are feasible to meet the CDO requirements, and that this is not the only project that can meet those needs. The applicant could have thought out a suite of projects that would meet those demand numbers, but instead went forward with this one, rather than consulting a more robust suite of projects that are working with the community, taking in protection of the coast, the environment, and disadvantaged communities into account. The new information relating to groundwater dune recession and new environmental impacts would also require that the Commission prepare a supplemental environmental impact report prior to approving a CDP. For these reasons, the Commission must deny the appeal and consolidate CDP permits. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Sarah Wan. I'm speaking on behalf of a group of environmental organizations. Most of the groups that opposed this supported it originally because of the illegal impacts to the Carmel River. But why should anyone accept it now that there is a feasible alternative? Desalination should be the last option, not the first. As a scientist, I'm concerned that this Commission get complete information upon which to make your decision as to the impacts of this on the aquifers of an overdrafted basin. Staff say that there are two different approaches to finding out what the project's impact will result in, which is why they used an independent reviewer. That was a good idea, and I commend your staff for it. However, the reviewer primarily reviewed why the hydrological model of CalAm he primarily reviewed the hydrological model, and even that review was limited. He did not review the AEM geophysical study. To understand the impacts of the project, you need to fully understand more than just what CalAm modeled, which, by the way, was inaccurate. The science used by the geophysicists is well established and used by numerous California agencies, including the Water Resources Board, for basin-wide groundwater studies. I assume that the AEM study wasn't dealt with because of lack of time, but this continuance will be sufficient time to look for at the AEM study and review both models. And what I'm asking is that this commission actually have that done. And that study gives you a much broader picture of what is and what is not present in the entire basin and what could happen with the withdrawal of water for it. So you really need to be looking at that study as well as all of the other models. Turning to the impacts on habitat and wildlife. According to your staff, my heart is concerned, the project will destroy 35 acres of Desal. According to CalAm's EIS, there are 33 listed or special status species in the areas this project will impact. How can you allow this? When one test well went in, the successful nesting and hatching of snowy plovers plummeted, even though you were told it would have no impact. What is going to happen when there are 7 wells and constant activity in the area for the next 40 years? This is critical habitat for a species on the edge of extinction. They're very tiny, fragile birds and precocious, so that they will be running around almost immediately after birth. They can't survive near this project. Not only is this a problem because of the direct impacts on these species, but this is a unique ecosystem. That means you must look at this assemblage of species and the impact of even one of them. One of the species' impact changes the entire ecosystem. When asked by your staff to provide an HNMP, CalAm refused and instead submitted a mitigation strategy that only attempts to mitigate 2.2 acres. CalAm says you don't need to see an HNMP until after your decision. Really? You need to know what the impacts and mitigations are when you make your decision, not afterwards. Why are they withholding information? What are they afraid of? You must have that HNMP because without it, you can't make the findings that the project is mitigated. Just a quick word on public access. I do not see how it can be provided that this project moves forward. The public has been cut off from this area because of the CEMEX operations in the past. It was considered to be a great accomplishment of this commission to get those operations to cease, and one of the major benefits was supposed to be the opening up of the area for public access. How's that going to happen now? With 7 wells and all of the facilities and roads, it's not just the wells themselves, it's everything associated with them. How is that going to make public access possible? It's not, it's going to be impossible. People need easy access. With the inability to use the existing roads or have new ones, ADA consistent access will be impossible. Everyone needs the ability to get and enjoy the beach, but particularly in a city with a large lower income population, it becomes even more important. In conclusion, please look at this project and understand it is not in anyone's interest. It is not in the interest of the ecosystem or climate change or access or long-term coastal impacts and hazards or even coastal water quality, and it should be denied.
Melanie Kerslock, Public Water Now, speaking on behalf of our 4,000 members. Staff got it right. Thank you, CEC staff, for doing such a thorough job of analyzing the many problems with this Desal project and pointing out a feasible and environmentally superior alternative in the expansion of pure water Monterey. This chart that you just got passed out is a clear comparison of both water supply options facing the peninsula. The Monterey Peninsula needs water. The Pure Water Monterey expansion can meet that need and be online much sooner than CalAm's Desal plant. While CalAm has spent the last 25 years figuring out how they can profit on our water shortage, our public agencies have stepped up and given us an outstanding solution in the Pure Water Monterey project. Deborah Jordan, the EPA's Deputy Regional Administrator, recently called Pure Water Monterey innovative and said the EPA plans to use this project as a model across the country. The recent water supply and demand report from our water management district has shown the Pure Water Monterey expansion would provide plenty of drought-proof water for 20 to 40 years. We don't need this desal plant. There is no truth to CalAm's inflated demand numbers that attempt to justify this oversized project. The Pure Water Monterey expansion is ready to go. It faces only one obstacle: CalAm. CalAm is refusing to sign a water purchase agreement for this recycled water. We essentially have a private corporation holding our community's water supply hostage. This is the problem with investor-owned utilities. CalAm is working against the public interest to defeat this simple, cost-effective solution. CalAm stands to make $120 million in profit on this desal project over the next 30 years. Last November, Public Water Now brought Measure J to the ballot and passed it with 56% of the vote. 24,000 people voted to buy out CalAm and force them out of our community. The required feasibility study was released just this week, verifying that a buyout is financially feasible. It will be moving forward as legally required by Measure J. Why would a community go to such extreme measures to be rid of a water company? CalAm has run up our water costs to outrageous levels over the past 10 years, giving us the most expensive water in the nation, and now they want more. This desal plant would cost us $1.2 billion over the next 30 years, compared to $190 million for the expansion of Pure Water Monterey. Our community's history with CalAm is dismal. We have two natural water resources, the Carmel River and the Seaside Basin. CalAm has overdrafted both of them. They have failed on 3 consecutive water supply projects, costing us $35 million. History has shown that CalAm is incompetent when it comes to developing new water supply projects. The State Water Resources Control Board ordered them to stop overpumping the Carmel River by December 2021. They cannot meet that deadline. No water crisis would result if this desal project is denied. In fact, if you deny CalAm's permit, CalAm would be forced to do what's in the public interest and allow the Pure Water Monterey expansion to move forward and end the peninsula's water shortage. Somehow, CalAm has managed to delay this vote with the CPUC's help. Interesting that now, only now, when this project is on the edge of failure, does the CPUC want to look at it more closely. Years ago, our community and public agencies raised the same concerns found in your staff report, but the CPUC refused to listen then. If the CPUC really wants to weigh in on this again, maybe they could help by requiring CalAm to sign a water purchase agreement for the Pure Water Monterey expansion water. When you are finally allowed to vote on this, whenever that is going to be, we ask you to deny it. All those who oppose CalAm's desal plant, please stand. Thank you.
Thank you. Beverly Bean has 5, followed by Jonas Minton, who will have 4, and then we'll go on to...
Hi, my name is Beverly Bean. I'm with the League of Women Voters of Monterey County, and we urge you to deny the CalAm application for a coastal development permit because the Pure Water Monterey expansion is a vastly superior alternative water supply project. Our league has studied local water issues in separate studies in 1982, 1995, 2003, and 2007. Among many of our positions, the League supports maximizing conservation and reclamation for all water uses, reclamation. Prior to the PUC approving the permit for CalAm's desal project, it approved the Pure Water project and held hearings on the expansion. But before the PUC finished its review of the expansion, it proceeded to approve the desal and then asked for follow-up reporting on the expansion. Additional information is now available on the expansion, particularly on cost and environmental impact. Recent electromagnetic imaging data are also available, as you have seen. By comparison with the expansion, the Desal project shows numerous disadvantages related to environmental impacts, environmental justice, cost, and size. Desal has a very large energy need with corresponding high greenhouse gas emissions. The expansion energy need is vastly less than the Desal. Energy supply for Desal is from PG&E. The expansion supply is from recovered methane gas from the local landfill. Desal will discharge brine to the marine sanctuary. The expansion will divert discharge for reclamation. Coastal dune disturbances are significant with Desal, in contrast to the expansion, which has none. Recent demand numbers and analysis make it clear that the Desal is oversized at 6,252 acre-feet per year. The expansion is consistent with projected demand needs for the next 30 to 40 years at 2,250 acre-feet per year. Cost differences are absolutely stunning. Desal is estimated at $6,000 per acre-foot, while the expansion is about $2,200 per acre-foot. The Desal project divides the larger community by taking groundwater from a lower-income community, Marina, and offering no benefits to it and delivering product water to a higher-income community, the peninsula. Slant well technology is new and experimental. It is not in operational use for desal intakes anywhere in the world. Slant wells are novel, untested, and expensive. The facts show that the proposed desal project is excessive and unnecessary. We support desal as a long-range water planning option, but it must be pursued only after all efforts for a low-impact project are exhausted. The expansion is the most environmentally superior project available, and it is by far the most sensible and affordable supply. The League of Women Voters of California joins us in urging your denial of this project. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Jonas Minton with the Planning and Conservation League. We've all heard a lot about the cease and desist order. You have before you right now the person who initiated that cease and desist order that evidently has invited all our friends here today. Early on, I was a major force in helping CalAm decide that they were not going to do an open ocean intake, that instead they would do a subsurface intake. On that basis, the Planning and Conservation League was a major supporter of the desalination project. However, since then, new information has come forward, particularly about the demand and the potential for expanding Pure Water Monterey. You've heard a lot about the demand estimates. I am not an attorney. I am not paid by any of the parties, pro or con, on this project. However, I do have over 40 years of experience developing and reviewing demand estimates. That was my job. So back in 1978, I was detailed to the state board to review demand estimates for water rights applications. I was a county water agency manager, and we did the state-of-the-art demand estimate. Those estimates have held up for 25 years. I was the executive director of the Sacramento Water Forum, where we did demand estimates for 1.5 million people. Again, they held up. Then when I was deputy director of the Department of Water Resources, I did statewide, managed that effort, and they seemed pretty good. I've pretty carefully reviewed the recent report from the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District. I find that their methodology and their assumptions are credible. That gets us to a second question, though: is Pure Water Monterey expansion feasible? I have 2 slides, or 3 slides actually, for you. The first makes the point that's pretty obvious to you all, that the site of the Pure Water Monterey project is clearly outside of the coastal zone. You can see it circled there. I did that with my blue Sharpie, not a black one. Ocean Highway 1, this is way up the hill. But let me now show you the second slide. And there's been a question about, how far along is Pure Water Monterey expansion? Is this something that's just sort of theoretical? I have done water recycling projects for over 30 years with the state of California and with local water agencies. I sponsored the major legislation that allows these projects to move forward. This is a picture of inside the existing Pure Water Monterey plant. And as you look at, on the right, there's a rack of those reverse osmosis tubes. That's where the water is in essence filtered. On the left, there's another rack. And right in the middle, there's a space. And on the floor there, you can see there's a flange. So when Monterey One Water developed this project, they had in mind they might need a backup. They can call a backup, somebody else will call an alternative. The flange is there. And what does that mean? That means that a truck comes, unloads a skid, puts a rack of reverse osmosis tubing right there. And the next photo shows further evidence of their good thinking. Those are pumps that deliver water into the process. 1, 2, 3, 4. My Sharpie was off a little bit there. But you see at the base, there's the spot for the fifth one. So in my 30 years of looking at these projects, water recycling potential projects, this is the easiest one I've ever seen. This expansion is darn simple. So having started all of this, I retain a responsibility to do something about it. So I've been going around the last several days talking to CalAm, to the Marinas, to Just Water and others, about getting together after this meeting to see how can we find a path forward so this mess doesn't have to stay in your lap. I will keep you and your staff informed.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. My name is Margaret Sedna-Benetti, and I am president of Monterey Peninsula LULAC 3280. LULAC is, it is our mission to represent the Latino communities, the underrepresentation that we receive. And the reason that I am here today, well, first of all, I will tell you that I have spent the majority of my adult life advocating for Latinos. And many times I have had to stand up against projects that do a lot of promising to Latino communities. They promise them housing, they promise them jobs, they tell them we're gonna build this here, and guess what? You're gonna get the jobs. Well, it usually doesn't happen that way, and they don't tell them all the truth. For example, the amount of pollution it's going to bring in, how it's going to impact our community, and how it's going to impact the environment as a whole. And this is how we end up with these Latino, marginalized, environmental racism neighborhoods. Exactly like this. I'm troubled right now that I have seen that there is a pitting of communities going on by CalAm. And it's pitting the Latinos in the Marina and on the peninsula with the Latinos over in the Castroville area who definitely have a need for water. There's no denying that. However, is this the project that is needed for it? This desalination projects, they use way too much energy, they cause problems. They are promising Castroville their brackish water that they'll clean it up in order to meet the legalities that they're confronting right now. And I haven't seen them reaching out to the Latino community other than right now to go out and say, hey, can we get your brown faces in the room so that we can then say we're all for you? But yet I don't know that I've ever seen, not any private, not PG&E, not CalAm, not anyone ever truly represent the Latinos community. They are for profit, and I want you to remember that. And they use people for that profit. And so I am here to say, please deny this desal. Yes, we need to solve what's going on in Castroville, but this is not it, and this is not the right approach, and it really, it hurts me to think that they are promising housing that is never gonna come, that these are the same people who have denied them decent wages in the fields, these are the same people who have not provided housing for them, and I can go on, but I will stop right
there. Good afternoon, my name is Andre. I'm a resident of Marina. I'm here to oppose the CalAm project because I am too firmly believe that this will negatively affect the people of Marina. We know there will be more hearings But we ask you to understand that many of us in Marina are ethnic minorities, where English is our second language. But we are here today, despite our fears and cultural norm about public speaking. Additionally, many of us are low income and disadvantaged, and it is difficult for us to get time off away from work, and it is difficult also to get our time off from our domestic responsibility. We are not paid to get to be here. So if we cannot make it to any of the future hearings, please understand that we care a great deal about this issue. Thank you for your consideration.
Tôi tên là Hồi Hoàng. Tôi là người Việt Nam, hiện cư ngụ tại thành phố Marina được 9 năm. Rồi tôi phản đối công ty California American đang dự định khoan giếng và lấy nước từ Marina rồi lọc và cung cấp cho các thành phố khác. Tôi thấy bãi biển Marina này đẹp quá và muốn hỏi là tại sao không xây nhà máy lấy nước ở chỗ khác, tại sao không gìn giữ bãi biển đẹp này để cho dân chúng và con cháu mình có cơ hội thưởng thức và dùng bãi biển đẹp này. Tôi xin ạ.
I'm going to translate what I just said. My name is Hoi Huan, and I've been in Marina. I'm a resident of Marina. I've been here for 9 years now in Marina. I find that the Marina Beach is very beautiful. I want to ask why this project cannot be constructed somewhere else. Why not keep the existing beautiful beach for our children and our grandchildren to enjoy and appreciate its natural beauty? Thank you.
Xin chào tất cả. Tôi tên là Sáu Thị Nguyệt. Tôi là người Việt Nam. Hiện tôi cư trú tại thành phố Marina được 28 năm. Tôi phản đối chống công ty California đang dự định khoan giếng và lấy nước từ Marina rồi lọc và cung cấp cho các thành phố khác. Tôi lo sợ việc lấy nước này sẽ ảnh hưởng đến nguồn nước của thành phố Marina và tôi sẽ phải trả nhiều tiền nước hàng tháng nhiều hơn và tôi không thể có tiền để trả.
My name is Sao Nguyen. I've been in Marina for over 28 years. I oppose the CalAm project. I worry that this project will affect the water pumping system of the Marina City, and that I will have to pay more for my monthly water bill. I don't have the money to pay the increase. Thank you.
Tôi tên là Long Chưa Lết. Tôi là người Việt Nam, hiện cư trú tại thành phố Marina được 18 năm rồi. Tôi phản đối công ty California America đang dự định khoan giếng và lấy nước từ Marina rồi lọc và cung cấp cho các thành phố khác. Tôi nói là bây giờ khoa học lọc nước đã phát triển rất nhiều. Tôi nghe nói là bây giờ họ có thể lọc nước phế thải biến thành nước để dùng trong nhà được. Tôi cũng nghe nói là phí tổn lọc nước như vậy rất rẻ hơn việc lọc nước từ nước biển. Như vậy tại sao không lọc nước phế thải để dùng? Thank you.
My name is Long Lê. I'm originally from Vietnam, and I've been in Marina, a resident of Marina for over 18 years. I also oppose the CalAm project. I heard that water treatment technology has advanced greatly. I heard that the current technology can convert and treat wastewater into potable water so it can be used inside a home. I also heard that the cost for converting wastewater into potable water is cheaper than converting salt seawater into potable water. If so, why not converting wastewater into potable water?
Tôi xin đọc cho bà Hào Đỗ vì lý do các bác sĩ hẹn nên không thể tới ngày hôm nay. Tôi là Hào Đỗ, tôi là người Việt hiện cư ngụ tại thành phố Marina được 15 năm. Tôi chống đối công ty CalAm và chồng tôi thường câu cá ở bãi biển Marina lúc sáng sớm. Tôi lo rằng chương trình say máy bơm nước sẽ làm khó cho chồng tôi đi xuống biển để câu cá cho gia đình. Xin cảm ơn.
I'm reading this on behalf of Howell. Howell been here over 15 years. My husband and I, Howell, also opposed the CalAm project. My husband usually go fishing at the Marina beach very early in the morning. I'm concerned that this project will restrict his access to the beach, and that will prevent him from fishing to provide for the family. Thank you.
Casey Evans, Marina resident for a couple of years, moved here with my family from San Mateo. We strongly oppose CalAm's Ocean Slant Well project, even though Ocean is a misnomer. I like to call it an aquifer project. And I can only surmise CalAm's thought process when they decided on a place to dump this project on. So the ideal site had to meet certain criteria. They had to have space for the project along the coast. The community had to have a lower per capita income compared to the neighboring cities, because after all, lower per capita income usually means lower IQ. So Marina, why not? They're not going to object. Well, guess what? Marina residents were awake and we're watching this very closely, and we will remember the decision that was made. Thank you.
Dr. Margaret Coppernoll.
Go ahead.
Bravissimo, distinguished commissioners, for courageously doing the right thing for the public good and environmental justice. Bravissimo to Tom Luster and staff for exemplary leadership and doing an outstanding job in a thorough, solidly scientific, and exceptionally well-researched report. The hydrogeologic evidence proves that CalAm's Desal project would be environmentally unjust. You recognize this hazard, but along with the State Lands Commission and City of Marina, you signed a resolution agreement making the CEMEX property inappropriate for industrial development. The Pure Water Monterey Recycled Water Expansion Project is the only viable, environmentally just, financially feasible, and reliable project to provide ample water supply, drought-proof, ensuring water security for all. This Desal project would irreversibly destroy the critically overdrafted Salinas Valley groundwater basin aquifers, making and risking another state CEO a possibility for CalAm in the future. CalAm has no legally obtainable water rights. It disregards the Coastal Act, the rule of law, and violates our community's constitutional and human rights. Sorry. I had to slice my talk because I thought I only had 1 minute. Please save us from irrevocable harm. Deny the Desal project. You will forever be our heroes. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ali Hussein. I am a U.S. citizen of a Sudanese origin. I've been living in Marina for 13 years. Now I am the president of the Sudanese community of Marina, Monterey, Salinas, and Desal. I'm here to express my position to the CalAm project. The Desal project is bad for our people. It is bad for our access to the coastal access, and it's bad for our sensitive habitat. And also, it is bad for our people. It seems only good for the powerful corporations and their supporters. Therefore, I ask your panel to disapprove the project. Thank you.
My name is Sarah and I'm 15 years old and live in Marina. I am against the CalAm Slam Well Desalination Project. I care about my city and protecting the land and environment. I do not stand for the environmental injustice to Marina and lower communities. I do not stand for a company that will create permanent damage to environmentally sensitive habitat areas.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Tammy Jennings and I lived in Monterey for 23 years. My California American water bill was $13.56 in 2005, and in 2019, even being on CalAm's low-income program, they're averaging around $39 a month. They basically tripled, and that is with no new water projects developed. The CPUC has approved every request from CalAm for rate increases without any new water sources. And when we were asked to conserve water, which we did such a good job conserving water that CalAm requested a rate increase for lost compensation for water for CalAm shareholders and got it. We paid for water we didn't even use and currently pay the highest water in the country. I was forced to retire in 2009 due to multiple sclerosis complications. I live on a fixed income. Our Social Security increases, when and if we get them, are hardly enough to cover our Medicare increases, much less anything else. Our local public agency worked hard and developed the only new water source in 40 plus years, Pure Water Monterey, a viable, affordable, sustainable new water source. There are major environmental issues with Desal plant that others have pointed out on previously that makes this project unworthy of a permit. Your decision will affect us all now and for future generations. I support staff recommendation to deny the coastal development permit. It is the correct decision for everyone's welfare.
My name is Violet Glazeman. I am in Mrs. Albie's second grade class at J.C. Crumpton Elementary School in Marina. On behalf of my school, I would like to say, please don't take our water. Please don't destroy our beach. We collected 76 signatures from students at recess. We are the future. Please protect us from CalAm's desalination. Thank you.
So we just wanted to say that we love going to Marina Beach and having picnics there. And we'd like to protect the snowy plovers. You want to say it?
Okay, thank you. My name is Karen Locke and I live in Pacific Grove. I'm asking you to please deny the CalAm Desal permit. My request and concern is for the seniors and disabled on fixed incomes, and the increased rates we will be subjected to are exorbitant. If these rates skyrocket due to the incorrect assessment of demand need, it is not serving the residents of Pacific Grove. Thank you for your consideration of our seniors and the economically challenged community. I'd like to say I do live in Pacific Grove. I've lived there since the late 60s, and I can barely afford to live there. I am a retired Monterey County employee, My husband and I don't drive new cars. We bought our house for a very low amount of money. We refinanced it once. We don't take trips, and we can barely afford to live there. And Prop 13 in the city of Pacific Grove, I mean, it's a godsend. So increased rates from garbage, from sewer, from water, just is all the stuff that impacts the disability community and the seniors. Thank you for your answers.
My name is Dr. Joanne Cannon, and I'm a resident of Marina, professor at Cal State University, Monterey Bay, property owner, and one who loves the coast and travels on it quite frequently by foot. I loved what the young children said, and they are the future. I'm 80 now, and this will be maybe my last few years to stand publicly to say for the land itself. What if I could bring you a message today, actually from the water itself? My care has always been for the groundwater and for those beautiful beaches. And so I ask for a message to bring you today, to get up at 5 in the morning, wait all day today to bring you this. From our groundwater. Go down, Moses, way down in Marina's land. Tell old coastal, let my water stand.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Haley Hill, and I currently live in Seaside and attend CSU Monterey Bay. I make the trip here today on a limited college budget because I have seen and experienced what big money does to small communities. I didn't have a say when big names came into my hometown and chopped down acres upon acres of 100-year-old oak trees without permission of the locals, I might add, to make room for their wineries and their mansions. My mom didn't have a say when her childhood home was torn down to be replaced by a tasting room. My dad didn't have a say when he had to take on more and more overtime shifts just to keep up with the skyrocketing local costs of living. My young brother and I not entirely understanding this. Today, we're considering something much more destructive and large scale than wineries and resorts, which is why I came here and I will speak out whether or not anyone actually wants to hear my opinion. You know what the right thing to do is. Do not let the interests of the few bulldoze the livelihoods of the many. I am asking you for the sake of the future of our communities, for our future generations, do not let CalAm continue with this project. Thank you.
My name is Abdel Mone Mohammed. I belong to a small minority here located in Marina. Most of us work in the DLI, Defense Language Institute. We enjoy living in Marina. We used to drink from the water in Marina. And we all need water, as you know. Today I drank 3 times from this pure, clean water here in this hall. And I just thank this opportunity to address all these beautiful faces in front of me now. We want, as you know, water for our farms and cattle, for our infants and kids, for our hospital and schools. But what kind of water? We need the least cost water for our community in Marina. So I urge you to support the recycled water program and deny this permit for the Desal.
My name is Stephen Wasson. I'm a resident of Marina since 2001. I'm just an engineer. I've read most of the report and much of Exhibit 7. And I have a couple of questions on risks that I didn't see addressed in there. So the first has to do with storms, which are not the centennial type storms, just regular storms, but still cause significantly more erosion than the estimated annual averages. So for example, in April 2010, we had a storm take out 35 feet of dune in one night, and that was at Marina Beach. That was a 60-foot dune, which is 20 feet higher than any dune at the proposed site. And the second issue has to do with sea level rise and tsunami run-up on the back side of the dune. So according to California's tsunami inundation map, they show the water coming up almost the backside of the CEMEX plant. And similarly with sea level rise, maps with just a 1 meter rise also show sea level coming around the backside of the dune. So this would seem to me to raise the risk of trying to put in some kind of long-term infrastructure on that site.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. I'm a 58-year resident of the city of Marina. When we moved there in '61, our water was there, it was fresh and it was affordable. And it still is, compared to the peninsula. As you heard from our city manager, I do volunteer at the teen center for the breakfast program. I'm 87 years old, and I get up 4:30 in the morning to be there to help those kids we serve breakfast to every morning during school time. And our city is not a rich city, by all means. As you've seen the people that spoke there before you from Marina at the city council chambers, we are a diverse city. We are a little uno city, so to speak. And I would really ask you to really think and listen to your staff, what they have to say about the reports, because CalAm is not telling you what they should be telling you, because they need that money for whatever reasons for their stockholders. Our people cannot afford that, and neither can a lot of widows that live around in the peninsula, and I'm one of them. We on fixed income. We can't afford high water prices. We can't afford all the raises. Our Social Security does not give us a raise, but everything else goes up. So please, think about the widows, think about the people that can't afford the outrageous prices what CalAm would charge those people. And I'm not the only one. And I want to thank you, and I really hope that you would come to a good conclusion. Thank you so much.
I'm Karen Anderson, with appreciation to the commission and the chair for the opportunity to speak, and as a fourth cousin twice removed by marriage of Oregon's Governor Oswald West, who preserved the entire coastline of Oregon from future development in 1913, I'd like to say, when I was researching where I would like to live on the Monterey Peninsula, I discovered that the city of Marina had its own public water district. This was very appealing to me, and I felt even more strongly about finding a home in Marina. I also learned that there was an active water conservation program in place here, and as soon as I stopped by the water district's headquarters to open my account, I asked for information on converting my front lawn and sprinkler system into a drought-tolerant landscape. I met with the district's conservationist, and he assisted me in several ways to have a successful experience with my application to the state of California's Department of Water Resources rebate program, as well as with the Water Utilities program. The seriousness with which the city of Marina approaches water conservation includes having more than 6 dozen lots around the central area devoted to recharging the water aquifer with percolation ponds. These lots could have been built for housing and tax revenue income instead, but they were preserved for the benefit of our crucial water source.
Therese Kohler, I'm a citizen activist. Good afternoon, Chair Rocho and Commissioners. I am a customer of Marina Coast Water District. I live on former Fort Lord property and a citizen water activist. Our group of volunteers strives to educate ourselves and our community on local water issues and to take action. In preparation for this critical hearing today, we have accelerated our reach to talk one-on-one to our neighbors, to our church members, to our community groups, including at our local farmers market. We've taken people on the 2-mile walk to the CEMEX site to see what we're talking about, because you can't drive there right now. And we have before you over 1,200 signatures that we've gathered one-on-one. So each of these represent a conversation. Each of these cannot be bought by hiring a lawyer or a lobbyist. So please pay attention to the voices of so many citizens from Marina and the areas surrounding Marina, and deny Desal, and the staff got it right. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Michael Kennedy, a resident of Marina, California. I am here to ask you to please follow your staff's analysis and resulting report and deny CalAm's harmful slant wells on the Marina shoreline. Pure water Monterey is a much more economically viable and environmentally superior water remedy for the Monterey Peninsula. Pure water Monterey will do no harm to the aquifers under Marina, nor harm to Marina's wildlife on the shore. Thank you for your role as California Coastal Commissioners and with responsibilities that include ensuring public access and recreation on our coast, wildlife habitat protection, visual resources protection, and prevention of any harmful alterations to the California coastline, including marinas.
Good afternoon, Chair Boschko and Commission members. I'm David Brown. I'm a Marina resident, and I want to say, and these are not my words, but let me quote, CalAm's modeling appears to be flawed in that it did not account for potential fresh water capture beyond an identified capture zone. Now, that is quoting from your staff report. And I'd like to congratulate your staff on doing a very thorough and detailed report. And one of the things important with respect to that sentence is there are sources of fresh water, pockets of fresh water, and a very large, what we call the Dunes Aquifer, which has rainwater in it, as far from brackish as you can get. And CalAm did not include that in the model. Perhaps that was, at least in part, because the later AEM, Airborne Electromagnetic Study, identified patches of water, including, I think, but I'm not positive, the Dunes Aquifer. That's all I have on that. One thing I'd like to do is I'd like to refer to something said by Supervisor John Phillips about Castroville. Castroville is a non-incorporated community of a population of about 7,000. Marina is it has a population of about 22,000. They're both disadvantaged communities, but of course Marina is not in the area represented by Supervisor Phillips. And he wants basically to put he's similar with respect to the leaders in Monterey. He wants to dump something that will benefit other areas and dump it on Marina. And I see my time is up. I ask you to deny. Thank you.
David Burnett. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I want to thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak this afternoon. Headline, March 2020. California American Water Company withdraws its application for the Desal project after reflecting on its flawed science, its injustice to the community of Marina, and its lack of sustainability in its design. That's a hopeful headline that I hope in the next few months will become a reality. One of the arguments that I've heard is that the peninsula needs a diversified water source portfolio. If that doesn't sound entitled and elitist, I don't know what else does. The city of Marina has a single source of water, the Marina Coast Water District. California American Water Company wants to jeopardize our single source. Our portfolio is a single source. They have no water rights. They have refused to engage with the citizens of Marina on a meaningful discussion about this project. Through the years, they have used scare tactics, intimidation, and all manner of subversion to get this project through at any cost. Because they, as been said before, they thought they could just come in and just push Marina over because it's Marina. You have to look at the mitigation plan before you vote. You have to. They have to explain how they're going to make a mess that they're going to make of our water supply. Do it.
Craig Fury. I come to this from a point of view of economic, environmental, social justice. It reminds me of a feudal lord up on a hill, dumping a load of elephants in the backyard to the serfs that live down the hill. It's the only way. It's the best way. Elephants defecate in the yard, destroy the environment, serfs have to move away. I'm an 18-year resident of Marina. I spent 32 years in public service, retiring as a chief officer from CAL FIRE. Throughout my career, I was privileged to assist customers and communities as wealthy as Pebble Beach and Indian Wells and as impoverished as the Salton Sea and Colo. I was always able to treat customers with equal respect, whether aiding former presidents or homeless transients. Unfortunately, the same standard has not been extended to our community. Marina is a working class, ethnically diverse community of 22,000 people. The average income is around $60,000. Some part-time residents of the peninsula derive that much income from their monthly stock portfolios. Our diversity is reflected in the 71 dialects spoken in our town. Our community of young families and aging military veterans and their widows, many of whom live on fixed military pensions. Their future habitability could rely on the costs associated with a destroyed water supply. It's threatened by this proposed desal. As a former member of the Marina Planning Commission, I voted against the initial test well for one main reason, because I did not feel, nor do I feel now, that CalAm had any kind of a realistic analysis of what the potential damage to the water supply would be. Still feel that way? The magnetic survey from Stanford and Marina Coast seemed to reinforce that. As Tom Moore said, you want a desal, build it in your own backyard. Don't put it in ours. Please accept your staff's recommendations. They have no dog in the fight.
Hello, my name is Tina Walsh. I'm a 20-year resident of Marina. I'm 20 years also resident of Monterey Peninsula, 20 years in the Salinas Valley. I'm also the widow of a Vietnam combat veteran, and my husband and I are both strong supporters of the California Coastal Act. The staff report recognizes 3 threatened or endangered species at the project site: the Monterey spineflower, Smith's blue butterfly, and the western snowy plover. The fact that the above noted species have been found to exist in the proposed project area provides further evidence that this degraded CEMEX sand mining site, according to the staff report, could still provide valuable coastal dune habitat and could likely support other rare or threatened species if not further disturbed. There will be 1,600 cubic yards of spoils from the drilling of wells that will be spread on top of the nearby 8 acres of Esha that is also plover habitat. The 2-inch thick layer spoils will impact many native dune habitats by higher salinity in the spoils being buried under the spoils, or by compaction by earth-moving machines used to spread the soils. How much devastation will we allow for threatened and endangered species on our shoreline and dunes? Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is John Sanders. I've been a Marina resident for 35 years, and I thank the Coastal Commission for this opportunity to comment on CalAm's proposed project in my community. Likely no one in our small town of shop owners, teachers, and hourly wage earners has sat in a corporate boardroom to examine spreadsheets of profit or plot the theft of water resources to enrich international shareholders. The matter before you today boils down to one of clarity and honesty. Be clear about CalAm's intent, purpose, and methods. Be discerning about sound principles of natural resource stewardship. Stand with the citizens of Marina and deny CalAm's dishonest permit application.
Good afternoon, Grace Silva Santella. Thank you for your time today. With much gratitude, I thank the California Coastal Commission staff for their recommendation that you, as commissioners, deny CalAm's desalination proposal in Marina. I was born and raised on the Monterey Peninsula, and I have been a homeowner in Marina for the past 30 years. For 37 years, I have earned my income as a professional landscape gardener in the CalAm service area. I served 10 years on the Marina Planning Commission. I chaired the Marina 2000, the year 2000 General Plan Update meetings, which planned for the early phase of redevelopment of Marina's portion of the former Fort Ord military base. I've also been a member of the Marina Coast Water District Water Conservation Commission. Because of my profession, managing water in my clients' gardens, and because of my hours as a volunteer in Marina, I understand the need for an alternative water supply in the CalAm service area, and, in capital letters, the importance in protecting the existing water supply for the Marina community. I urge you to vote no on CalAm's desalination project in Marina. The Monterey Peninsula does not need CalAm desal because there is a viable, less costly, and environmentally superior alternative, the expansion of pure water Monterey.
My name is Jane Parker. Mary Ann has had to leave, unfortunately. And she says, Dear Chair Bochco and Commissioners, access to safe and affordable water is the most important issue facing our community. The primary reason for this desalination project is to end CalAm's illegal diversions on the Carmel River and to reduce pumping in the Seaside groundwater basin. I take the State Water Resources Control Board cease and desist order very seriously, as it would have dramatic consequences for our residents and our economy. While the desal project has been planned mostly for CalAm's service area, it would impact the neighboring Marina community. Implementation of a desalination project should not be done to their detriment. Speak right in there. The environmental justice analysis addresses one of my primary concerns about the project, the cost and its impact to CalAm's ratepayers. In addition to the communities of concern included in the staff report, within my supervisorial district, District 5, I am concerned about the cost to seniors and workers on fixed or limited incomes who would be greatly burdened by the increased cost of water as a result of the proposed project. As the District 5 Monterey County Supervisor, residents in my district will carry most of the costly burden of this project, so I am especially vested in the outcome of your deliberation. She believes that desal will be needed in the future, even with Pure Water Monterey, but she sees Pure Water Monterey expansion can serve to meet the near-term requirements of the CDO until a regional desal project can be developed. Thank you for your consideration of these comments and for the incredible amount of time, thought, and diligence you give to all projects that come before you.
Good afternoon. I'm Gil Morton. I am the Mayor Pro Tem of the City of Marina. Today, speakers were asked in filling out a form if we wanted to speak, whether we supported the staff decision or opposed the staff decision. And every speaker has advocated from that position stated. The only evidence that you have, which is not prepared in advance or by an advocate for or against the project, is your staff report. Well qualified to do so, your staff evaluated the facts and the science and came to its own independent conclusion, that being, this project is inconsistent with the local coastal plan and the California Coastal Act. Marina requests you rely on that staff recommendation, which is free from politics and bias. This morning, a California Public Utilities Commissioner, representative from the commission, spoke to you about its 6 years of due diligence and defending its approval of this project. A CPUC decision is not res judicata for this commission, nor is it persuasive under the law. Nowhere in the Coastal Act is there any direction for your commission to defer to a CPUC decision. What's important is when the CPUC decision commenced its procedures, now more than 6 years ago, 2 conditions existed. CalAm was the only viable project. Pure water Monterey expansion was too speculative to be considered as an alternative. Today, those conditions no longer exist. Today, denial of the permit will not defeat the requirement to reduce harm to the Carmel River and will not prevent the creation of an adequate water supply for the peninsula. Today, your staff has the ability to analyze whether this portion of the project within the coastal zone violates the Coastal Act without any fear that our peninsula neighbors will not have water. Today, you have the ability to deny approval of a project which has flaws, which has no water rights, and which will harm another jurisdiction. Pure Water Monterey is a viable choice. In conclusion, rely on the unbiased, non-politically influenced conclusions of your staff. No one better understands your responsibilities. Deny the permit.
Thank you, Commission. My name is Jane Parker. I am Monterey County Supervisor for District 4, which represents both a community from which water is proposed to be taken, as well as communities to which it's proposed to be sent. I've written 2 or 3 letters to you over the time the application has been making its way through the process, expressing some of my concerns. Today, both here in Marina and there in Half Moon Bay, we have members of the community of Marina who have long been worried about the CalAm project's threat to their water supply and to the sensitive coastal area they helped to negotiate with CEMEX to rehabilitate. And they have wondered why water would be taken from their diverse town of working families to be sent to more affluent communities to the south. We have members of recipient communities here also. They too are cognizant of the environmental, social justice, and cost issues inherent in the CalAm Desal project. Many people thought that despite the negatives, they had to allow this to go forward so that CalAm could meet the terms of the cease and desist order. But now that there is an alternative, much closer to readiness and without the environmental, social justice, water rights, and cost concerns, now that there is an alternative, and despite CalAm's scary, the sky will fall message, a much broader group of residents from throughout the entire area is comfortable joining in support of the Coastal Commission staff's recommendation to deny CalAm's permit, as I too urge you to do. Thank you for your time.
Hello, I'm Jerry Dalton. I'm speaking on behalf of Allison Kerr, who had to return to her office for afternoon appointments. So I will read her statement. Good afternoon, Chair Bochco and Commissioners. My name is Allison Kerr. I'm the mayor of Delray Oaks. I'm one of 28 elected officials who signed the letter opposing CalAm's Desal plant permit, which was sent to you, by the way, about 3 weeks ago. I appreciate being able to address you from Marina, as I also work full-time and could not take the entire day off to join you in Half Moon Bay. I'm not here to reiterate the overwhelming data that supports denial of CalAm's permit, but rather to draw you a picture of our community. I represent 1,700 residents of Delray Oaks, a small community in between Seaside and Monterey. our region, Delray Oaks is comprised of educators, military and civilian personnel, and employees in hospitality and agriculture. While we do not have the racial diversity as our neighboring cities of Seaside and Marina, we do have more than 40% of our residents over 50, many of whom are on limited or fixed income. The citizens of Monterey region, are a thoughtful and responsive population. We know we are blessed to live in this area of great natural and fragile beauty. Water has been an issue for us for over a generation. So when we were asked to give up water wasteful lawns, we did. We installed low-flow toilets, let me say that again, low-flow toilets, and faucet flow restrictors. We get annoyed when people brush their water while brushing their teeth. We proudly see the result of our efforts reflected by the sharp decrease of usage from 14,000 acre-feet, as reported in CalAm's EIR, to the current 10,000 acre-feet, 4,000 acre-feet decrease, almost 30%. Yet, we have seen our rates increase year after year, and now we're told to anticipate another high spike in the near future. We understand the critical crossroads we are at with regards to our vanishing natural resources. We watch our forests burn due to lack of oversight and timely infrastructure maintenance. We watch hundreds of thousands of gallons of oil spill after continued, constant reassurances of We watch devastating effects on climate warming, while CalAm's Desal plant would be the largest emitter of greenhouse gases in our area. We're concerned about the health of our aquifers. We watch as corporate giants put profit ahead of people. CalAm's Desal plant will cost $1.2 billion over 30 years, 6 times the cost of the environmentally superior alternative of Pure Water's Monterey's expansion. $190 million is the cost of the Pure Water expansion. CalAm's profit, by the way, over the same period will be $120 million, only $70 million short of the entire cost of the expansion project. Please don't let politics sway you or outweigh the facts. I ask that you consider our residents and stand with your staff recommendation as you make your decision. Consider the immediate and long-term impact to our coastal habitat, groundwater, climate, and water costs. Thank you.
Hi, I'm coming to you now as Clyde Roberson, the mayor of Monterey. It's striking, isn't it? Good morning, Chair Mitchell, commissioners, and staff. Thank you for providing this remote site in order to share with you. 28 elected officials signed a letter to you stating, and I quote, "As residents of the Monterey Peninsula, we urge you to deny California American Water's coastal development permit for its desalination project. The staff report correctly found that this project fails to comply with the California Coastal Act. There is now a feasible alternative in the expansion of the Pure Water Monterey recycled water project that can easily meet the peninsula's demand for several decades and at a fraction of the cost. The impact of climate change is a grave concern. Denial of this project would reduce energy consumption and the release of greenhouse gases at a time when our climate crisis demands action." End quote. Why did I sign this letter? Citizens are concerned, yes, worried about their water bills, especially those on fixed incomes, about environmental damage from a desal plant, especially youth, about impacts on neighboring cities' water supply and saltwater intrusion, and about environmental justice. Why else did I sign the letter? To ask you to deny this project, for the ratepayers while providing a stable water supply, for future generations facing climate warming, for the health and betterment of our region, state, and planet, to meet the requirements of the cease and desist order with a viable alternative. California and the Coastal Commission have been leaders in combating climate warming. This is another opportunity to help save our very existence. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Katrina Chapa, and I'm a very concerned student from Marina High School who supports the claim of being against the CalAm proposal. Here in Marina, we come to beach as our home, and to continue with the CalAm project will only positively affect one party, while negatively impacting the rest of our humble community. From what was proposed, our already limited beach access would be even more limited, and our water price would be raised even higher, with an even higher chance of native animal extinction and water contamination. As students, we don't really get the chance to voice our opinion on such proposals, but as the future leaders of this community, our voices need to be acknowledged as well. Think of how our community, which is already dependent on these limited resources, would be affected, and not just the economic gain of an outside party. To support the organizations who oppose CalAm's project is to support future generations in creating a more sustainable tomorrow.
Hello everyone, I am Isabel Tenseco, a student from Marina High School. I am here supporting the staff recommendation of being against the CalAm proposal. From what was said, it will increase our water prices. We are not a rich community. Many families living here are struggling around this area. It's already hard living here, and with what CalAm is proposing to do with our water, it will make it even more difficult for us. To the multiple families living in single-family homes, to the families living paycheck by paycheck to pay a water bill that is already a dread. We are looking out for you. We see that you are struggling. We see that you're trying to achieve the American dream. We want to help you. And to the outside parties, you are not living here. It has no effect on you, but it affects us in tremendous ways that you are blind to. You won't be able to see our struggling community, but you will see your community flourish with our resources. Thank you.
My name is Mark Del Piero. I'm an attorney, and today I'm here on behalf of the Ag Land Trust of Monterey County, of which I'm a member of the board of directors. By way of background, I was the vice chair of the State Water Resources Control Board for 8 years and served as vice chair when we adopted Order 9510 that found CalAm excluding water from the Castroville River. The Ag Land Trust of Monterey County was formed in 1984 to permanently preserve farmlands and farming in Monterey County. Our trust is focused on the preservation of coastal farmlands in compliance with the Coastal Act. Now we own permanent open space conservation easements and fee title to over 45,000 acres in Monterey County. We strongly oppose the proposed CalAm desalination project. The only viable solution is the Pure Water Monterey. The fact is CalAm has no groundwater rights. It does, however, intend to violate the Coastal Act, the Sustained Groundwater Management Act, and the Public Trust Act. And it intends to pollute the sole source of potable aquifers that our farming operations own and have paid to preserve. We strongly recommend that you deny this project. Tom Luster, your staff person, got to recommend.
Yeah, hi, my name is Michael and I support the staff recommendation. I'm a 30-year resident of Marina. I'm on the Public Works Commission for Marina and the Tree Committee, and I'm politically active. So about 4 years ago, when the city proposed a sales tax increase, I campaigned against it because I thought of the disproportionate effect on the low-income people. As part of that campaign, I talked with the manager of a low-income housing project on former Fort Ord called University Villages, which houses about between 100 and 200 low-income Section 8 families, and found out that every month there's about a handful of people, that was 4 years ago, that had to choose between paying their water, utility bills, and food. And one person had to vacate after the water was turned out after 2 months. So he was basically economically homeless. That's the kind of result that you're going to expect. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Christina Medina Dirksen. I'm a longtime 20-year resident of Marina. I came in here with a prepared statement, but I want to tell you something else. When I walked in here this morning, I saw a man who walks around my neighborhood every single day, my 2 elderly neighbors, the sweet, shy cashier in a grocery store, and a lot of people that I didn't know were as concerned about this. So I want you to be aware that this is something that's really brought our community together. So those, I also appreciate the staff recommendations to the issue of environmental justice. Somebody spoke to this being an 11th hour project. Well, This is not an 11th-hour project for anybody unless you were not in the know. I was not in the know for this for the last few years. This is something that's going to really devastate our water, access to water here, devastate our businesses if the pipeline goes through and has to shut down our businesses. This community fought very hard to shut down the sand plant, and restoring it to its natural beauty is something that I and my family look forward to. Thank you.
My name is Margaret Davis. I'm a Marina resident, and may I first observe that this room and the overflow room were full, that the people had to leave. They would have made a lot of points, but the two that I would stress are, first, that your staff report makes clear the CalAm project will not produce a drop of water by the December 2021 deadline, and potentially for years. No amount of wishful thinking will help this. Among the problems, quote, CalAm has not yet received approval for use of a pipeline, and moreover, relies on, quote, another entity designing and installing a 2-mile outfall liner. This will require CEQA and a separate local coastal permit before construction, before CalAm can operate. Good luck with getting a quick permit from City of Marina for this project. Completely ignored in the CalAm proposal is its lack of water rights for its plant wells. The wells are in the aquifer, not the sand dune. Thank you.
My name is Audrey Walton. I'm a long-term resident and fifth generation. There's third generation, there's 5 generations of my bloodline here. I'm here to urge the Coastal Commission to do a fantastically huge and incredibly important thing. Deny the proposed CalAm slant well project. This is an urgent matter. Marina's sole source of water is threatened by this project. CalAm reported to the PUC that the test slant well had already increased saltwater intrusion into the basin. The PUC allowed for this project to move forward anyway. With respect to environmental injustice, this project screams, please stop me. As a member of this very diverse community, I do not want this experimental slant well desal project, especially when there is a feasible alternative in the Pure Water Monterey expansion project that will meet the peninsula's demands and with a much smaller carbon footprint, smaller upstart cost, etc. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Suzanne Worcester. I'm a resident of Monterey and a CalAm ratepayer, and I support the staff report. The desal project negatively affects the public welfare in multiple ways. There's a huge cost issue, which is a justice issue for working in the CalAm region. Increasing costs on the Monterey Peninsula will only increase commuting distances and greenhouse gas emissions due to long commutes for workers who can't afford to live there. California is literally burning up, in large part due to climate change. To max out at 1.5 degrees C, we must reduce our current emissions and mitigate existing emissions with renewable energy. Pure Water Monterey uses existing biogas and helps that. CalAm's project requires huge carbon offsets, which only protect existing forests, but do not plant new trees. We need to remove carbon out of the atmosphere to help our fire and sea level rise issues. Please support projects like Pure Water Now, which will help reduce our carbon emissions, and CalAm's does not.
Hello, my name is Danny Whitaker. I'm an environmental engineering student with MPC, a resident of Marina, and I was also born and raised in San Diego, so I know about desal, and I know about tourism, and I know that neither one does anything to improve the quality of life of the communities that are being impacted. If this was a truly beneficial plan to the communities, even though I know that not a single representative from CalAm has a 93933 zip code, if it was really beneficial, it would have circumvented our community, it would have involved us in this process, we would have actually found a solution that can reconcile everybody's issues. We already have a dump in Marina. I don't want somebody else's trash coming in. Thank you.
Starting already, good afternoon. Alistair Robb, Marina resident for 18 years. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you virtually. I've waited 6 hours for my 58 seconds of fame here. Look, 2 things. Marina worked hard to move CEMEX out and get that space for recreational opportunity, beauty, and protecting the environment. We don't really want it replaced with another industrial site. The second thing is, while I understand that over the last 15 years, Monterey didn't want to turn its window on the bay into a desal plant, that Carmel Beach didn't want to take the new Palo Corona Park extension and put a desal plant on it, the Pebble Beach didn't want to take Signal Hill and put a desal plant on it. But somehow, once again, you want Marina to observe, like the recycling facility, you throw it all on us. CalAm couldn't find another location, they say, but because nobody else wanted to take it on. But what they can do is find another source, pure water, to start got it right tonight.
My name is Troy Ishikawa, and I'm a lifetime resident of Carmel in the third generation Monterey County. In the very well-researched staff report, an entire section was devoted to environmental justice with the conclusion that, in fact, Marina is a bona fide community of concern. Environmental justice is about the equal sharing of benefits as well as equal distribution of risks and harms. Per your staff report, CalAm's project creates terrible burdens for Marina's groundwater and damages their shoreline. But they receive absolutely none of the desalinated water. How is this fair and just? Environmental and social injustice should concern all of us, no matter who we are or where we live. Injustice is injustice, whether we live in Marina or not. Please support your staff report. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Linda Madsen. My husband Roy and I have lived in Marina 39 years and raised our daughter here. But being on fixed income, we're getting pretty worried about what we will do if the water rates continue going sky high. You know, there's an old French saying, plus ça change, plus de la même chose. The more things change, the more they remain same old, same old. Well, we're living in a time of change. Climates are changing, water supplies are changing, but some of the same old persists. Greed, mistreatment of nature, doing the wrong thing. Same old is when a wealthy corporation tries to bully a small, diverse, working class city and take its water. I believe for us to survive and thrive, we've got to start doing the right thing. You commissioners know the right thing to do. Please do not approve CalAm's Desal plan. The recycled water plan of Pure Water Monterey makes much more sense at a fraction of the cost. Please deny the CalAm request. Thank you.
My name is Connie Mast. I've been living in Marina for about 35 years now. And I just love living close to the ocean. My husband runs there nearly every day. And I love being close to nature. I really want to protect this area. It's so important. It frightens me to think that they're going to build this. CalAm's going to build this and change our environment here, and we're going to be exposed to toxins. Can we even go to the beach anymore? And we're going to be breathing all this smog or like bad air and things like that. Anyway, I just hope that you deny CalAm the right to deny them, to tell them they can't build that thing, or can't build it.
My name is Steve Hunt. I'm representing Public Works in Marina. I'm also a Rotarian, past president of Marina. I have all these notes that I prepared, but I'm not using any of them because I've learned so much in the last 6 hours. This is a classic show game of rob Peter, pay Paul. Period, end of story. That's what we have here. There's no doubt, but I've learned anyway, that a desal is something that's required. But it's required by Pebble Beach, by Carmel, by Monterey, by people that have much more affluence and the means to do it, that don't want to be bothered. And clearly, the path of least resistance is the path that leads to the people of Marina. Do the right thing. As a Rotarian, I'm going to conclude with this. We have what we call our four-way test. And the four-way test basically asks, is it fair, is it honest, and is it good for all the people that are involved, okay?
Hi, my name is Catherine Henry. I'm a long-time Marina resident, and I'm just here to say that I'm just really confused as to why the needs of CalAm cities on the peninsula take precedence over the needs of us in Marina. If CalAm's plan is approved, it seems like Marina will be penalized for having been self-sufficient for water. We will likely be forced to become dependent on CalAm at great cost to us. This feels to me like a hostile takeover by eminent domain by a private company with absolutely no benefit to Marina residents. My suggestion, as others have said, if peninsula cities need and want water like they do, put this desal plant there. It might mean closing a golf course. Number two, the desal plant is first under protest on Marina, then perhaps Marina residents should get free water for life, or at least have our rates frozen. Thank you.
My name is Susan Nine. I'm president of the Monterey Vista Neighborhood Association, Monterey City's second largest neighborhood. Desal is too expensive and too energy intensive. The CalAm project would harm Marina's beaches and dunes and cause salt water intrusion. It is the very opposite of coastal preservation. We refuse to collude with CalAm and special interest groups that stand to profit from stealing natural resources from our neighbors in Marina. Pure Water Monterey recycles water responsibly and cleanly and is not divisive to our community and is a far less expensive alternative that can and should supply water needs for our existing population and allow for reasonable growth, including affordable housing. Financial gain from unbridled development and water profiteering is driving a push for desal, regardless of costs to ratepayers and environmental harm. Please uphold your staff report. Thank you.
Hello, my name is William Hoskrop. I'm a resident of Marina for the last 14 years, and I take great pleasure in walking and hiking the beaches of this beautiful little city. One of the things that no one argues with, that water is indeed necessary, and certainly having sources are important. However, the solution in the community should not sink the boats of one party and raise the boats of the other. I think that you should seek the wisdom of the deeper well of your staff's recommendation and deny the permit. Look forward to doing desal in the future when it's more feasible. Thank you.
My name is Viviana. I'm 10 years old. I've been living in Marina for 10 years. And I think that it's really important that we save all the sea life. And I don't want to be drinking salt when I'm drinking my water. And I want to make sure that every piece of sea life and every animal is treated the way that I want to treat it, which is kind and respectful. And I want to make sure that our land is not tortured by any type of machinery that causes damage or effective damage either.
So, my name is Marias Dirksen. You see what this is? This is a Stellar plover. And their homes are going to be where you guys are going to be taking the water out. They can only nest in specific places. So, if they die down, a lot of other animals are going to too. And this is like my favorite animal. So, I think you guys should probably think about the animals and their homes, because imagine someone was doing that to us. So I think you should think about it.
Hi, my name is Nunez. I'm a CSUB student studying watershed systems, and I've had lots of fun going over to CalAm's riverway route, and I saw the work they did, and the modeling was great because it was all lighted out. Like a few years later, now I'm over there studying their river system for fish viability. And Mr. Watson, the president of Marina, mentioned earlier about the erosion of the dunes, and I've also been studying dune erosion along the coast and over at Del Monte Beach, where they're trying to armor the beach because it's creeping over to Del Monte neighborhoods. And I'd like to refocus and highlight that issue because in the coming years, we're going to see higher precipitation, higher droughts, and sea level rise is going to be part of that. And with sea level rise, more sea erosion, beach encroachment, and as mentioned earlier, one of the issues of these wells was they'd be overtapped coming from behind. So I'd just like to say, please deny this desal plant and make the right choice.
Commissioners, my name is Mehrdad Shahi, and I am a resident of Marina. I was here this morning, but I received a call from the school that your child has an emergency and you need to come because the two other emergency contact number that were on the list of they were both here. One is Patricia, she's already here, and another friend of mine that I think he left. So I had to go back, and I found out that she was pushed off of the slide, and thankfully she was just hurt a little bit. So I thought by myself, I called back the friend and I said, I want to come back. It's important for me. It's not only important for me, it's important for those 2 children that I have. So I drove back because I submitted a note that I will be speaking with this paper. And I didn't want to show a sign that I don't care about it. I wanted to come back, drove 4 hours because it's important. Not only important, above all, it is just not fair that this happens. I just received a letter. I have 2 children and parents that they live with me, and I do have 2 jobs to support them. And I just received a tax notice that I have to pay $600 more tax this year. And I thought by myself, if I don't come back, that's going to be another raise on my water bill, because I know how much else the other CalAm ratepayers pay. So I came here before you. And by the way, I come from a street that I am among a few people who speak this much of English, and I know you barely understand me. I have another neighbor who speaks English. She was here. I don't know if she speaks because I wasn't here. I was all the way. It's not easy. If you don't care, it's not easy to go back to Monterey and come back with your family here. But I care. Please take a look at your staff report. This is very important. You saw the children of people who are majority were non-speaking English parents. You saw them on the picture. I wish my right neighbor, they are landscaper. My front neighbor, he's a bishop in a Korean church, and he doesn't speak English. So I thought that it's my responsibility at least to come here and to request your support, and please deny this plan. It is not right and it's not unjust. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, and thank you for all the trouble you've gone through.
Good afternoon, my name is Stacey Vandersbeck. I'm a Marina resident. I am against the desalination project from most of I moved down to go to CSU Monterey Bay, and I didn't know anything about environmentalism or anything like that. But within a year, we were able to learn about all the endemic species and threatened species that live in our communities. And I think it's irresponsible to threaten the animals that are conserved. Thank you very much.
Carol Sedgwick from Seaside. I am hoping that you will listen to your staff and deny the desal. Last month, the U.S. Department of Energy awarded a $100 million grant to Lawrence Livermore National Labs to lead a national consortium aimed at lowering the cost of water purification. They were chosen because their researchers have developed a new capacitive technique that promises to lower the cost of desalinating seawater. Today's desal is quite expensive because pressures of more than 1,000 pounds per square inch must be generated to push the salty water through filters. The new technique uses new porous carbon materials which allow the salt water to flow easily through electrodes. Recycled water from the Pure Water Monterey expansion will supply sufficient fresh water to our region for a generation. In the long term, we may well need desal. But let's use the best design available at that time, not CalAm's proprietary solution. That is, there will be something better. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the Commission, Laura McCarthy, resident of Marina. To quote page 79 of your staff report, the Coastal Commission now has an independent obligation to consider alternatives to the project based on current information. The staff report goes on to list a plethora of new information since the CPUC decision, including updated information related to water demand and Pure Water Monterey expansion. Pure Water Monterey, alternative to the CalAm desal plant, is not only less environmentally damaging by not illegally extracting groundwater, which they have no rights to, nor permanently damaging rare and pristine ESHA, but it is superior in every way. It's less costly and demands less energy. Best of all, it will supply to the Monterey Peninsula the water that they need at much more affordable rates. Even when taking the highest growth rate of the last 20 years and then tripling it, there's enough supply from this alternative for decades into the future. Using a much more practical approach, you can imagine the supply will extend even well beyond that in the future. We go a little off script. For me, this issue is not simply about liking or disliking desal. Heck, to be honest with you, I hope Castroville can one day desalinate their own seawater treated aquifers. This is about doing the right thing. As you look into the audience and see these plovers making a plea for help, I want to tell you what this plover represents to me. It represents not only the species itself, but it represents everything that's being talked about today. It represents the disadvantaged, the homeless children in my hometown and throughout the Monterey Peninsula. It represents the residents of Marina, the city council chambers that were not able to return after lunch to speak because they need to work to put food on their tables. And I ask you to please help. It represents the Vietnamese residents who boldly spoke up, despite it being very against their culture to do so. Please, please help. Deny this project. Please help.
And really, I think that the Water District report did an excellent job. I am Walt Notley, yes. Did an excellent job on the report, showing that the supply and demand for water use recently has dropped dramatically over the last several years. The recycle wastewater expansion project would meet our most water needs for decades. With groundwater rights, delivery problems, and other legal issues, the desalination proposal is more likely to have time delays in wastewater expansion. The expansion would use a small fraction of the energy than the desalination. The expansion energy source would be from the adjoining landfill biogas, while the desalination source would be all from PG&E, leaving a huge carbon print. This desalination plant would add considerable amounts of water, of concentrated brackish water per day into the Monterey Bay. Expansion is 1/6 the cost of desalination. We are now paying the highest water rates in the country, which will more than double if this desalination plant operates. It would cause saltwater intrusion in the Marina's sole groundwater supply and adversely impact lower income families and retirees in the area. Your planning staff has done an outstanding job reviewing this permit, showing it has environmental justice, environmental degradation, cost issues. Denial of this permit will leave no negative impact and significantly reduce ratepayer water bills, benefit residents and businesses, and reduce carbon footprint. The recycle wastewater expansion is a feasible and in the public interest alternative. Please deny this desalination permit.
Good afternoon, I'm Alice Ann Glenn. I thank your staff for seeing the value of pure water Monterey expansion being more economic, ecological, equitable, and sustainable than the desal. Affordable water is a basic human right, so pure water Monterey expansion is the best option for us as ratepayers and residents. Pure Water Monterey is a public, community-centered decision. Please deny CalAm's permit for our grandchildren and their great-great-grandchildren, for whom we have borrowed these lands. Thank you.
I'm Matt Zefferman. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm a former Air Force engineering officer, PhD ecologist, and elected member of the Marina Coast Water District Board of Directors. As you have heard today, many in our service area agree with your staff's analysis and recommendation, but we are dismayed that a last-minute intervention by the CPUC has delayed your vote. I teach risk analysis for a living, and it strikes me that your riskiest bet is trusting a risk analysis done by the CPUC. If this meeting was held here a month ago, the folks in the back room would be okay with all the skylights, but here in the front room we'd be sitting in darkness, as well as in every room in every building in town relying on CPUC-regulated power supplies for days. Because substandard CPUC analysis, California cities are without power while others burn to the ground. People are displaced, people die, pipelines explode. The CPUC's own investigation of the deadly San Bruno pipeline found retroactively that the agency did not have the staff or technical expertise to assess the risks of the projects that they approved. I've only been involved in politics for a year, but I've already seen how this works. When Supervisor Phillips spoke earlier today, he did not mention that CalAm has given tens of thousands of dollars in the last couple of years to the charitable foundation he founded. Mr. Bruno, who nominally represented the Seaside Basin Watermaster, did not mention that his family engineering firm, of which he is a principal, has already been awarded the CalAm contracts to build pipelines for the desalination project. I only have a minute, but if you go down the list of business organizations supporting CalAm and compare the list of organizations to which CalAm funds partially or entirely, it is hard to find a supporter of this project that does not get direct or indirect payments from CalAm. However, as we've heard today, they can't buy all of us off. We are very concerned that CalAm will use the next 4 months to use their vast financial resources and political connections to substitute the CPUC's inadequate, out-of-date analysis for your staff's thorough and updated independent analysis. We worry that our coastal resources and our groundwater will be the next San Bruno pipeline explosion, the next Santa Rosa fires, the next constant days-long coastal blackouts. I urge you and your fellows to follow your staff recommendation to deny the permit. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioner. It has been a long day. My name is Sylvia Shi. I live in Seaside. I pay my water bill to CalAm. I'm here to share 3 thoughts. One, I urge you to embrace your staff's recommendation. I think they have done a thorough job, fair, and I felt that for the first time, I am heard. The second point is that I am the face of the public. Of course, there are many faces of the public. Some are for, some are against. But I think that if we can charge the water at the same rate to different segments of the community, they will change and sing a different tune because the rates are different. And if you pay little, maybe you don't care. You say, give it to me, give it to me. The third point is that there are many thoughts thinking that the pure water project will not deliver, only the Desal. The fact is, I have drunk water produced by pure water project. I have not seen a drop produced by CalAm throughout the years. And the fact is, whether the Desal will ever succeed, the cost will be borne by the ratepayers. And they have failed many, many projects. So if I'm to trust anybody, I would trust the Pure Water Project. Nothing is perfect going forward, but as we go forward, we can proceed. And the sooner you make a decision, the sooner people can go forward. Thank you so much.
Phil Wellman, Monterey Peninsula. CalAm has argued that the Pure Water Monterey expansion could not withstand a multi-year drought. Here's the facts. Water cutback in a drought is mostly outdoor water. Monterey 1 water does not collect outdoor water for recycling, only indoor water. The use of indoor water does not change to any appreciable degree during the drought. In fact, during our recent 4-year drought, 6,000 to 8,000 acre-feet of treated wastewater was still being discharged into the bay every year. That's 6,000 to 8,000 square feet of source water that could be recycled. In addition, the Seaside Basin can store 50,000 acre-feet of water in reserve. We can survive an extended drought with the PWN expansion, as the Seaside Water Master model has demonstrated. CalAm has seen this data and has not disputed it.
My name is Jurgen Strandelsberg. I am a citizen of Marina, and I'm speaking on behalf of Mr. Peter Lee, who was unable to attend to it. So, here he is. I'm originally from Vietnam, and I have lived in Marina for 38 years. I have knowledge and experience in the following subjects: with slant wells, water treatment processes, planning, designing, and construction of such facilities, preparation of EIR and EIS documents, State and Endangered Species Acts, and hydrogeologic analysis. So as such, I concur with staff and independent consultants analysis, and I also agree with your staff's recommendations. And therefore, I am asking the commissioners to deny all permits to CalAm for this project. So, thank you.
Hi, I'm George Howell, resident of Marina. Your commission's staff report concluded that, and I quote, CalAm's wells would extract greater volumes of non-seawater than was identified in CalAm's models, and there are several significant data gaps regarding the groundwater flow paths in the dune sands aquifer. Wow, what a statement. When a disadvantaged community's sole source of water hangs on knowing whether CalAm project will extract their groundwater and how much will be dumped. Yet this is not known. This is truly an astounding statement. You cannot approve such a project that has not resolved fundamental issues of harm to the Salinas Valley groundwater basin, a basin to which CalAm has no rights to pump water in the first place. Please follow your staff's recommendations and deny this permit. Thank you.
Jean Turner, Monterey. I've been a citizen of the peninsula for 51 years, and I want to make it clear that the peninsula is not trying to foist a desal plant on Marina. In fact, as members of Public Water Now, feet on the ground, we defeated that concept when we passed Measure J. I have another petition that was circulated 10 days, 1,000 signatures, more people from the peninsula who do not want their water bills to double.
Thank you for letting me speak. Susan Schiavone from the city of Seaside, a city with a 14.9% poverty rate. This project, if approved, makes water unaffordable for us. By 2021, estimates are that we will have a 77% rate increase or more on top of recent increases. This regressively forces lower middle class ratepayers to pay the highest proportion of income for water. This equals economic policy by corporate directive and will squeeze out people of lower middle income due to inability to afford to live in the area. This is an existential threat, especially for us on fixed incomes. I also don't understand why the State Water Resources Control Board is defending this project. They issued a directive in April of 2019 to utilize recycled water in coastal areas where discharge goes to seawater, especially in areas where groundwater basins are overdrafted and there is seawater intrusion. That is exactly the situation on the Monterey Peninsula, and this is the direction we should go in. We should comply with their directive. I'd like to thank the staff for their concern for the communities involved, and I'd like you to choose the correct alternative. Thank you.
No, I'm Marlene Fisher from the Monterey Peninsula as well. I have one main concern here tonight. I keep hearing people bring up the possibility that the Pure Water Monterey will not have a reliable source of water, and that we're not hearing any corroboration for that from anybody. And also that the report that was issued by the Monterey Peninsula Water Management General Manager was flawed in some way. These two people, Paul Shuto from Pure Water Monterey and Dave Stolt from Monterey Peninsula, need to be able to say something about and defend their figures and the sources of water that they have. I hope that you will be doing that. Thank you, and please deny Desal.
Amy Anderson. Good afternoon, and thank you for your patience today. I'm a resident of Carmel, and I have a PhD in marine biology. I've been very interested in this project ever since I learned about it. I applaud the Coastal Commission staff for the outstanding job they did in order to produce their staff report, and I agree with their conclusions. There are many reasons to support this recommendation that have been noted today. According to an article published in the New York Times, November 8, scientists admit that they have underestimated for years the severity of climate threats and the speed at which they might develop. Just this past summer, a heat wave melted 40 billion tons of the Greenland ice sheet, something that in the early 90s would have been thought unimaginable. The state of California has recognized the substantial threat of greenhouse gases and has made reduction of those gases a high priority. Well, these two competing plans for Monterey Peninsula's water supply couldn't present a starker contrast in terms of greenhouse gas production and environmental impact. While the Desal plant would produce nearly 5,000 metric tons of CO2 per year, the expansion would produce only 2 metric tons, a 2,500-fold difference. The Desal plant's energy consumption would be about 38,000 megawatt hours per year, and the pure water expansion would consume 5,820 megawatt hours, 5,800 of which would be offset by burning methane, a very strong greenhouse gas produced at the regional landfill. Now that's a twofer. You get really low CO2 emissions and you're burning a greenhouse gas that is a serious greenhouse gas.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I recommend that you deny Desal plant.
Gina Jett, very dissatisfied CalAm ratepayer on the Monterey Peninsula. To feed its proposed desalination plant, CalAm will draw 100% of the water from groundwater to which it has no rights. The PUC has approved a Pure Water Monterey project for 3,500 acre-feet annually. However, the PUC did not complete a review of the Pure Water Monterey expansion and has not seriously considered the expansion as a feasible, preferable, less costly, less invasive, and less risky alternative to slant wells that do not exist anywhere in the world. The expansion of Pure Water Monterey is consistent with the State Water Resources Control Board notice of December 12, 2018, that recycled water is the preferred policy. The State Water Resources Control Board's policy requires that feasibility of slant wells must be determined before proceeding. The excellent Coastal Commission staff report thoroughly addressed all the reasons CalAm's project should be denied. Thank you.
Marlene Melton, Carmel Valley, CalAm ratepayer. First, thank you, Coastal Commissioners and staff especially, for your careful, thorough, and accurate work, for staying awake to listen to us today, and for the staff recommendation to deny a coastal permit. The Pure Water Monterey expansion is a new, cost-effective, sustainable solution for current and future Monterey Peninsula water needs and growth. Denying the CalAm permit does not mean no desal. It allows ample time to develop a less polluting, regional, more energy efficient, environmentally just, responsible, and more affordable future project when actually needed. If we're burdened with wasteful billion-dollar CalAm desal, how will we as communities pay for other urgent projects? The Pure Water Monterey expansion will allow us to respond as sea levels rise, storms get stronger, and we still need to improve schools, roads, wildfire prevention, and more. Contrary to CalAm's exaggerated claims, its $1.2 billion energy-intensive desal will weaken our community's ability to function well. Please deny the CalAm coastal permit. Thank you.
My name is Judy Lehman. I'm here to request that you deny the CalAm desal project. I've lived in the Monterey Bay area for over 40 years. I was elected 3 times to the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District, serving 12 years. I am well aware of our complicated water history. I admit that there are many real issues of concern regarding water in the peninsula. I will focus my few minutes to speak to you about the real ongoing future, seawater intrusion and groundwater exchange. Seawater intrusion is irreversible in freshwater aquifers. These freshwater aquifers are our region's lifeblood for residents, businesses, and farmers. The Stanford professor Rosemary Knight presented a report of incredible groundwater comprehensive analysis taken by a helicopter, the airborne electronic magnetics. The most important takeaway from this report is that there's a considerable amount of fresh water in Marina's shallow aquifers, the dunes and the 180-foot aquifer. Both are enormously important to the seawater sustainability of Marina Coast District, continuing healthy water source. This new information runs counter to the conventional wisdom that shallower aquifers in this region are all intruded with seawater. However, a less studied and understood concern is the CalAm Desal test slant well, pumping water from the Marina freshwater sand dunes aquifer without truthful factual reporting. This has been reported to both the CUPC and now the Coastal Commission. Slant well test monitors were not placed at the top of the slant well while they were pumping. This is my visual aid for you. This is the slant well. This is where the monitor is. This is all fresh water that they're pulling. It's not being reported by the monitoring that's going on. Pulling this endangered groundwater basin will cause harm now in the Marina Coast and in the threatened sand dunes.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, and deny the project. Thank you.
My name is Jan Schreiner. I'm a volunteer elected board member, Marina Coast Water District. I support the Coastal Commission staff recommendation to deny the permits. Your own staff exhibit 6 makes note of several studies that quote anticipate that storm severity and frequency will increase with future climate change. And I was hoping that Billy might remember there is a photo that I submitted this morning, and it was scanned under the name Schreiner. There is a history of underestimating erosion, and thank you. The visual compression of the graphics in your staff report, and I'm reading that based on an evaluation of erosion risks in 2014, the then proposed test well was created further inland in the original proposal. In this photo, you're looking at the first tie-in pipe of the test land well that washed away in 2015, only 1 year after they had adjusted their erosion. Tie-in is the blue pipe connected to a concrete bulkhead of the wastewater outfall. So this is only 5 years after a previous speaker had said there was a very large erosion event. This was also only 5 years later. The outfall liner has not yet been evaluated. CalAm has not provided the information needed to consider appropriate mitigation. They may need their own pipe, and that should have been in the EIR. The cost of the 6,000 per acre feet is based on bulk capacity of the plant and TDS close to seawater. If, as Weiss has claimed, as high as 15% of that is freshwater, the cost will be more like $10,000 per acre feet. I have others, but I am sorry I'm going to run short on time. Thank you for your
My name is Herbert Cortez, and I am an elected board member of the Marina Coast Water District. But more importantly, I'm a proud resident of the city of Marina, and I support the staff report to deny the permits. In a landmark vote in March 2019, this commission unanimously voted for an environmental justice policy. It's a policy to advance environmental benefits, to be shared equitably, and to diminish environmental burdens, especially for disproportionate communities. So why is it acceptable that the only choice for disenfranchised communities in the peninsula is to have a water source only because we have to be part of a water rate discount program? Think about that. The whole time that we've talked about this for the past 6 hours, we can only have a water source if we're part of a water discount program. That's completely unacceptable and ridiculous. The environmental justice policy isn't to be part of a water discount program, it's to provide us equitable benefits to our local natural resources. CalAm stated proudly that 30% of their seaside residents are in this water discount program. But what do you think that increase is going to be when Desal costs $6,000 per acre feet? It's going to be more than $30,000. And what are we going to do then? As stewards of this new environmental justice policy, affirm that our natural resources are for all of us without a water discount program.
Hello, my name is Laura Hoover, and I am a resident of Marina. I am here to speak against the proposed CalAm desalination plant and in favor of the Pure Water Monterey expansion project. In Marina, we have some of the most pristine, beautiful, and fragile coastal habitat in California. It's a national treasure, and it must be protected. The CalAm desalination plant is unnecessary and duplicative. Pure Water Monterey has a clean, viable alternative that will supply the water needs of the Monterey Peninsula. This is a classic environmental justice issue, David versus Goliath. I ask the Coastal Commission to consider the facts and do the right thing to protect Marina's coastal habitat.
Anna Thompson, I live in Carmel. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm here to just say to please listen to the children and listen to your staff. They know better than anyone else here. We all have bias. So I wanted to say that CalAm's proposed Desal project is not in our community's best interest. It is my belief that by recycling all available wastewater, banking of rainwater runoff, and adoption of aggressive water conservation practices, we can achieve a sustainable, environmentally friendly, and most affordable water supply. This is the policies that most water districts have adopted, and they are very successful, and they do not claim, they do not need a desalination plant. But if a desalination plant or any other water supply needed, then please consider that has to be original. No one group of people benefit at the expense of others, and it has to be fair and just. I say that the water is very valuable resource that we need to preserve, and we do not want to waste it and use it only once. Just imagine that. Water recycling, you're recycling all the time. You're not running out of water. So thank you.
My name is Dr. Tim Sanders. I'm a retired physics professor. And I want to express why why CalAm's and the CPUC are not to be trusted. And also, there's a serious question whether the mayor's authority actually has a spokesman to speak for them, and whether that's the statements that were made by the mayor's authority representatives supposedly are actually correct. In terms of the trust that the people should have, people of the peninsula should have in CalAm and the CPUC, the SWRCB has ordered CalAm to finally stop overpumping the Carmel River by December of 2021. They cannot meet that deadline. Since 1995, the history dismally records 3 consecutive CalAm failures of water supply. One is a $3 million project, the new Carmel River Dam, the $12 million pilot project at Moss Landing, and a $20 million project that failed, the regional desal project at Marina. In each and every one of these failures of CalAm, the CPUC has cooperated, supported, and approved the project, then passed the costs on to us. Not only is it unfair, they've been incompetent as providers of water. Thank you.
My name is Jennifer Smith.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak to you today. My husband and I have lived in Marina for 15 years, and I took time off work to be here, like many. And I urge you to listen to the analysis and the recommendation that your staff have made to deny this desal permit. I oppose CalAm moving into Marina to build a plant that would adversely impact our groundwater. Our town is diverse and is proud, and many in our town are low income. We pay much less than CalAm rates. Please vote to deny this permit. The Pure Water Monterey Recycled Water Project has been determined to be a viable alternative that is cheaper and better for our environment.
My name is Monica Tran Kim. I am a child of war refugees. Because of the trauma of the Vietnam War, the Korean War, and World War II, so many in my community fear about speaking out against an entity that holds overwhelming power and money. When my mom spoke against the Communist Party, she had to flee her home country. In the dark of the night with a group, she had to make a difficult decision. She had to leave my brother behind, for if he cried during their escape, the group would have been executed. My mom did not know if she would ever see her baby again, but she had to learn that silence was the only way that would keep her alive. Many members of my community had to learn this. We are not silent because we do not care. When speaking up has forced us to see our loved ones die in front of us, forced us to live in extreme poverty, how can people expect the refugee community of Marina to speak out in mass numbers against a multi-million-dollar company when they are trying to steal our groundwater? The ethnic community is scared and petrified to speak against corruption. Even me, being blessed with knowing English and American customs, feel sheer terror and intimidation, and CalAm knows this. This is why they picked Marina and not Monterey to put their desal plant. I am lucky that when I communicate my feelings and fears, people can understand me. Although I am scared, I speak out because I know many that have been broken and have lost their voice. On the behalf of the ethnic refugee community, I beg you, please say no to desal.
Lopez. Thank you, Commission, for your time. I'm currently a student at California State University, Monterey Bay. I reside in the city of Uranga. I come before you having been undecided due to my understanding of the necessary considerations pertaining to social health and economic growth. Having listened to the concern of Marina's groundwater and the necessary water needed to supply the peninsula, I find it tyrannical like for a private entity to profit off a disadvantaged community. Such as Marina, it is inconsiderate and ignorant of CalAm to continue to build this undecided infrastructure. I suggest you halt the construction with an agreement until an agreement is signed upon, and an alternative solution is established. This will allow you to save money and put into more consideration for the local economy that will be affected and the environment along the coast. Based off these two options, the recycled wastewater treatment plant is the healthiest for the coastal ecosystem and economically sound for the impacted communities. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Denise Bledsaw. I am not in support of the CalAm desalination project as a community member within Marina, as well as an environmental educator. As an environmental educator, I get the opportunity to work with some really awesome 5th and 4th graders throughout Monterey County. And these 4th graders and 5th graders do understand the importance of our dune habitats, knowing that it doesn't just protect the natural environment like snowy plovers and endangered native plants, as well as the human environment. Dunes are supposed to naturally shift during storm surges. to brace for impact. If those dunes were not there, it would ruin sensitive habitats, but it would also decrease the value of our agricultural lands that are close to the coast.
Julie Hoffman, Marina resident. This nugget spotted in the staff report, the productive life of the desalination plant is stated to be 60 years, yet the slant wells may need to be moved in 20 to 25 years. CalAm has underestimated the sea level rise in moving sands. You should look at this very closely. The staff report identifies that the slant wells will be located close to CalAm's easement boundary on the CEMEX property, but there is no future easements available to move the wells inland. Instead, there is a defined conservation plan from the CEMEX closure settlement agreement. Thank you. This will limit the productive life of the plant to 20 to 25 years, not 60 years. This shortened lifespan increases the low ratio for a project that permanently damages 30 acres of habitat. Kudos to your staff for preparing such a thoughtful roadmap, and they got it right. With all due respect, you know what I'm going to say, deny the project.
Very nice today. I'm Nancy Runyon. I live in Monterey, where I've lived for 20 years, and not all of us in the Monterey Peninsula are wealthy Pebble Beach mansion owners. Some of us are senior citizens who've retired here, who are just trying to scrape by. When I first moved here, I was shocked to find that my water bill was, 20 years ago, was $12 a month. Because in Palo Alto, with a larger home, and my children still home, it was like $4 a month. And then, now my bill has risen until it's $70 a month. And that's a huge, my Social Security check is $1,030 a month. Luckily, I'm 72 and I can still work part-time to support myself. But we can't afford this. I also don't want to steal anybody's water. I don't want to do any environmental damage to our beautiful coastline. I love the snowy plover. Your staff got it right. Please deny CalAm's desal plant. We don't need it. We voted a year ago to take over CalAm because we don't trust them. They've done nothing but make mistakes for years. Look how they spend their money on all these glossy brochures that we got one a day. Here's 25 brochures to try to defeat Measure J. But we prevailed because common sense is on our side. Your staff recognized it. Thank you so much. Please deny the desal plant.
Hello, my name is Joel Leaker. I'm a resident of Monterey. Moved to Monterey in 1960. I've lived in Monterey for about 23 years. I'm here to represent myself. You know, just going back to the mission of the Coastal Commission, I'm sure you're more aware of it than I am, but it's more about protecting and enhancing California's coast. It's not about establishing a massive industrial complex along our shore. The pure water expansion cannot harm our water in any way. There's no debate about that. There's a lot of debate about our groundwater viability. It would be a shame if this project got approved. I urge you to accept your staff's report. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Liesbeth Visser. I'm a resident of Marina. Your staff has stated that CalAm has not correctly modeled the groundwater impacts nor addressed the public welfare implications. At this late date, when such fundamental concerns related to modeling have been challenged as inadequate, how can this project be allowed to proceed? What else has not been correctly analyzed? And public welfare has not been considered? How incredible. The time has come to abandon this proposal and instead pursue a much more environmentally responsible and sustainable pure water Monterey expansion project that can meet the regional water supply needs at a fraction of the cost and not endanger a disadvantaged community's sole source of water. Please follow the well-researched, objective staff report that recommends denial of the CalAm project. And using my bonus minute, I would like to add, CalAm has admitted that their proposed slant wells will pump up a small percentage of groundwater. People, I'm sure, will be arguing about what percentage that is, the exact number. But for me, and it should be for all of us, anything more than 0 will be illegal because CalAm has no rights to this water, fresh or brackish.
My name is Keiko Atkins, and I'm a long-time resident of Marina. And I also have a small business in Marina. I have given you a handout of the group letter that's signed by 33 small business owners in Marina downtown. And we oppose the CalAm project for all the reasons stated in the letter. Please notice the diversity of our small city. And you can see from the sky and all these people and all these small business people working 7 days a week and barely making it. So please don't let the big boys to bully under the small people in Marina.
Hello, my name is Nicole Cortez. First, I'd like to thank you for your time and thank you to Just Water for giving me the opportunity to be here and to Mayor Bruce Delgado. I am a CEMEX student and researcher who is here on behalf of myself and my peers who could not make it today to speak against the desalination of water in disadvantaged and marginalized communities.
Commissioners, my name is Michael Bear. Here we are again. I want to thank staff for an excellent job on its report. Staff got it right. After 5 years, it suddenly looked reachable with these findings that we were closing the door on CalAm's Desal project. But with the PUC action, CalAm got their boot hold back in that door. Whether or not the PUC raised legitimate concerns on the technical issues, we will just have to see what they are. I trust that the public will have a chance to review and respond to these issues before the amended staff report comes out. But there is no doubt what that boot in the door means for CalAm. It means we are moving from science-based decision-making to bald-faced lobbying and political theater. We have battled CalAm these 5 years through 3 EIR processes and 2 election campaigns for a public buyout. It's always the same game plan for these guys. They will send out their armada of high-priced lawyers and funded allies in a full-throttle attempt to discredit the Pier 1 Monterey expansion EIR, and they will, which still needs certification, and they will attack the Water District 2. Prediction confirmed. They have political allies on the Monterey Run board. If you want to know who they are, just follow the money. And I have to say thank you, Matt Zefferman, for shining the light on that issue. They will provide misinformation, misrepresentation, propaganda, and deploy all the other tools in the CalAm playbook that we witnessed these 5 years. They will come at you hard, and they have time now to gin it up one more time. But when it is time for you to decide, we beseech you to return to science-based reasoning to inform your decision. The decision is just too important for now and the future to allow hack politicians, high-priced lawyers, and CalAm beneficiaries to control the narrative. True science matters.
Thank you very much. And that concludes our public comment. And I want to take a full round of applause. I want to thank all of you for behaving so nicely and speaking from your heart, but also without a lot of drama. So now, bring it back to staff. Hi.
I just have very few words. Just a reminder that because you are not making a decision today, you will, believe it or not, be getting more information about this project and information and testimonies. So please focus your comments today on clarifying questions and identifying information that you would like staff to investigate before it comes back to you again. It is important that you do not prejudge your decision and that you do not deliberate today.
Madam Chair, just a few concluding thoughts from us, and I just want to assure the Commission the public and the applicant that staff will follow the facts here, sound science, the law, and also just a good dose of common sense in formulating our next staff recommendation. We'll be conducting a thorough analysis of the technical questions and issues identified by the CEUC and the State Water Board, and the issues we heard in testimony today, presented both in testimony and also in the correspondence that we received today. And that includes additional analysis of the groundwater hydrology questions, including the AEM geophysical study. And we understand that the stakes are really high here, and it's important we get this right. And we land on that alternative that provides a reliable, sustainable water supply that is the environmentally preferred and the environmentally just alternative that is fully consistent with the coastline. So that is our charge, and that's our goal, and I assure you that's what we're doing. So I'll turn it back to you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Long.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, everyone. Okay, so I'll just share just a couple of quick questions for staff. The first one has to do with locations, and so in terms of this being a marina, specifically with Marina, what we've heard has been what will be the impacts on Marina and what will be the benefit of Marina, but just more discussion in terms of the other possible locations for the facility. The other one has to do with the rates. We received some information that based on, so there was discussion about the amounting capacity of the plant and what would be produced, but we also have some information here that talks about the cost per acre foot at 86% capacity. When the capacity drops, the cost rises. And so curious about with the likely production of the plant, what do we think the cost will be in that situation if the capacity that is being drawn is actually lower than what CalAm is predicting? Would we be closer to some of these rates, which are get into the 8,000 per acre feet range? And I'll just leave it there for now. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner O'Malley.
We're curious about whether commissioners would like an answer to those questions today, or whether you're putting those on the record for staff to investigate.
Did you want a discrete response, Commissioner, or would you like responses now?
You know, I think based on the length of time that we've been here, that there could just be questions that are on the record for you to consider and get back to us on. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Forgive me if I misunderstood. Commissioner O'Malley.
Yeah, thank you. Just a few quick questions as well. The first one's on water quality and brine discharge. And I read in the staff report, it looks like there will be times where there won't be sufficient wastewater, perhaps any wastewater, to mix with the brine discharge. Potentially, I think there's up to 100% brine discharge. I'm pretty familiar with the Desal plant, which does use seawater to mix discharge, to basically diffuse and dilute the discharge. And I'm curious here, do you have any idea of where that extra water flow will come from, and would it be additional flows pulled from the slant wells in addition to the water supplies? I'll just again put that on the record. I look forward to answer that. The other question I have is too, but the other one's procedural. I just want to make sure I get this correct. If we agree, let's say the commission agrees that the project is inconsistent with the act as it relates to ESHA, water quality, and hazards, then I understand the only way we can approve the project is if it meets the three tests, each of the three tests in 30267 and 30233. And at that point, is it fair to say that our decision is no longer discretionary, that we were then directed by the act to deny the permit if we find that pure water is a feasible expansion within a reasonable time? That's another question that we have. And then finally, I just want to clarify that the question, the pure water expansion, it seems like in the staff report has construction deadline anticipated to come into compliance before the CDO deadline, that our finding that the project is feasible within a reasonable time frame is not driven by that CDO deadline as well. So those are my questions. Again, in the interest of time, don't need to answer now, but I'm curious about the answer. Thanks.
Commissioner Ross.
Yeah, I think I hear
answer my two questions, and they're sort of broad. There were a lot of issues raised by the speakers, especially the local residents from Marina and otherwise, around rates, around impacts to the aquifers, their aquifer, their water source, around, and you've already mentioned, impacts to the ESHA, around, and procedural ones as well. For instance, you know, there's other agencies and there's other jurisdictions that have some authority, not the same as ours, over what happens with this project. So I guess what I would like to have clarified is what issues were raised that are actually kind of irrelevant or outside the scope of what we're considering, just so that the public understands what are the facts we're dealing with versus other issues that may be pertaining to this project but don't fall within the scope of the Commission's authority. And then I think process-wise, I'm a little confused around the role now that the CPUC is playing, and also with what happens with the supplemental EIR. There's a timeline there, I'm sure, with response to comments. It does put new information on the table. Does that impact the CP's decision going forward and or the State Water Board? So just understanding even better the process with regards to those other regulatory bodies and their assessment of this proposal.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Brownson? Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I just have a few questions in addition, and I fear that our report's going to double in size, from 110 pages right to 220. But first, I just want to say this was an amazing hearing. The comments from the folks, public, and really all the participants, the organizations, I mean, it was extremely, everybody was extremely well stated, and as the chair said, there's no psychodrama. I have to say this was an extraordinary hearing on a difficult issue, but I really felt like I was being informed the entire day, and right now I feel like I'm hallucinating because I have so much information in my head that, so these questions may not seem very coherent, but I'm grateful to everybody in this room, I really am, and to all of those on TV. That was great. Okay, so quickly, and I do not want a response today because I'm not sure that I could even understand it, but one of the things, just quickly, and I'm going to go on some of the other questions from some of the other commissioners, if we could just understand a little bit about the technology on the slant wells, not in extreme detail, but you know, the assertion that there could be data that's missing that could impact the ecology of those aquifers, and how that would work with respect to slant wells for the purposes of Desal, and then how that works for the related question to me is the use of the Salinas aquifer and the water that's going to be the source of the recycling. Is it in fact just interior water, or are there drought conditions that could stress that system? You know, just a little more detail with respect to how these really do impact those aquifers. Also, a little more detail separately, but I think incredibly importantly, was one of the facts that really got my attention was the 2017 study where the CalAm water rates for their community were among the highest out of a survey of 500 public and private companies. And how does water conservation and the reduction of use, it has the unintended consequence of often increasing the price of water, particularly when projects are trying to be penciled out. So the economics of how that works and how that impacts the community. And I'd really like to understand, why are those water rates so high? And maybe I missed that in the report, but especially for this community. I was really struck by that. And then, let me see. And then I think one of the other commissioners mentioned this, but this is my last question, to really understand why there's this divergence of views on the water demand analysis, because I really think that's what's driving the decisions that are going to be made around this most important issue. And so again, thank you to staff and thank you to everyone, to the public, and appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Bruin?
Thank you. I wanted to add, it was especially good to hear from the people from Marina through the video. That was really helpful, because I think we did get to a segment of the population that doesn't always come to our meetings. So it was excellent to hear that. I have the same questions as almost everybody. The ones that I'm really very interested in is the procedure. The water board, are they finished with this? PUC? I asked at lunch if anybody knew why the PUC took 6 years to even get the project, and I didn't understand that at all. The rates, I think the rates are good. It would really be nice to have a rate chart or a rate analysis. And the other thing that I'm curious about is the impact on agriculture. I mean, agriculture plays a big part in the Coastal Act. And so we've heard that whether the ag will have enough water or not enough water, or it will be variable. So I'd like to know a little bit about that. And I think everybody else's questions are close on my list too. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Hart?
Thank you. I just want to second how incredible it was. And thank you to Billy and all of you having people testify from Marina, and everyone here was incredible. I just have 2 questions. My question has to go with the pure water. My first question is with regard to, the Pure Water Monterey board and their position, and I'd like more information on the justification for their position, more of an understanding about whether there is some issue with their actually being able to provide the water that we are indicating will be available and base our whole, frankly, our full report on. That remains confusing to me, and I went back and went through all of the exhibits, etc., and it's still unclear to me, and it's really been bothering me. Number 2, I really need to resolve in my own mind this issue that was brought up just now by attorney for CalAm versus what everyone's been talking about all day. What is the mechanism as the slant wells, if the slant wells are pulling water, to what extent do they pull fresh water in, and what basin or basins is that coming from, and a true analysis, a definitive analysis, as much as we can have between now and March, on the impact on Marina's water. Those are my 2 questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Commissioner Escobar.
Thank you. I'll add that I appreciate the public's comments. I agree with all of you. It was probably one of the most constructive meetings, controversial meetings that I've been to thus far, and I'm especially grateful though, and quite honestly, it got a bit emotional, especially to be here today. It was a historical day to be able to connect by video to a community that would have otherwise been totally cut off from access and participating, and from having us hear their voices and their perspectives. This is in the spirit of Novo. It shows our commitment to the EJ policy, and I am truly proud of our staff in particular for making it happen, so thank you. And I have 2 questions. I guess I'm really interested in the conservation piece. I think I would like a further analysis. We get talking about portfolios of water supplies, and of course, the cheapest, most reliable water is that one you don't waste and you don't throw away. I want to kind of that more discussion about that, and maybe how the region, or I don't know how you want to break it up in terms of whether it's CalAm service area, if there's more room for conservation was legislation that was passed in the past session, SB 606, if I'm not wrong, and AB 1668, and how sort of this area is going along with that. And lastly, I noticed when I was looking at the map, obviously this is a marine sanctuary, but it's also between two marine protected areas, the Alcorn Slough and the Pacific Grove and Silmar area. So I wanted to sort of have a little better understanding from the state agencies that manage these protected areas, if there's any concerns or impacts in these particular ones. I think you've heard me say before that, we protecting those three pieces of ocean protects us from sea level rise and climate change impacts. So that is important to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions, gentlemen? On my left? Go right ahead, Commissioner Gold.
First of all, I just wanted to thank everybody for their patience, their perseverance, and their professionalism. I know, having been where you're seated in my previous career, I know how trying it can be to sit through one of these, nobody lost it, which is pretty amazing for something that's really this intense with this much at stake. So I just want to acknowledge that. And pretty good first meeting, I guess. It's just the norm, right? And so there was a bunch of questions. I'm not going to get into detail. I think I'm going to deal a little bit more with staff, but just to sort of round out some of the things that had been brought up, and there'll be other ones I'll bring up later, is that really trying to reconcile the differences in the demand estimates is a really big deal. And so I think we're going to need that fleshed out a little more, because the difference between 10,000 acre feet and 14,000 acre feet per year is pretty much what's the solution to the problem. And so really understanding that better. And then the other thing, which was brought up on numerous occasions and was sort of coming through the EIR and didn't really find enough on it, is just a much better understanding on what the source water would be for the pure water expansion and how reliable that is, and whether or not all of the wastewater in the region is really taken into account. Is that all, and just out of my own ignorance, is that all going to Monterey Wind water, or is there some available that could be used as source water? There's stuff like that just really trying to do a water balance that's just not quite there. And that would be helpful as well. And I'll follow up with some of the questions later. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Did I miss anybody? Okay, well, thank you so much. And really, staff, I'm going to be a big proponent in the future for these kinds of hearings where we do get an opportunity to listen to all sides. I know it's lengthy, I know it's tiring, but it does give us so much information that by the next hearing, or I'm sure we'll get even more, I feel very confident that we'll be able to make a decision without, a lot of strum and drum. So anyway, thanks again to everyone, and I think that will conclude this part of our hearing, and we'll continue it. Is that proper? We'll continue it and close it for this evening until we hear it again. And thank you again, everyone.